That's my father.
The man beside him is Howland Reed, Mira's father.
Sir Arthur Dayne.
The Sword of the Morning.
Father said he was the best swordsman he ever saw.
Lord Stark?
I looked for you on the Trident.
We weren't there.
Your friend, the usurper, would lie beneath the ground if we had been.
The Mad King is dead. Rhaegar lies beneath the ground. Why weren't you there to protect your prince?
Our prince wanted us here.
Where's my sister?
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And now it begins.
No. Now it ends.
When you play the game of microphones, you win or you die. From within the House of Black and White, it's Sir Duncan and Lady Rachel.
Well met, tower-defending Kingsguard and candy-seeking little birds, and welcome to Game of Microphones. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, the transmogrifying horror.
And I'm Lady Rachel of House Fox, the Unbroken.
And this is episode 95.
On this episode of our series Rewatch, we're covering Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 3, Oathbreaker. I almost said Oathkeeper.
I know. Every time I go to say Oathkeeper, even when I'm typing it, and I'm like, fuck. And in case you're not already aware, this series Rewatch is from the perspective of someone who's current on the show. That means you've seen up through Season 7. If not, there's still time to be cut down with an underhanded stab to the back of the neck by a Crannog man, so you don't have to hear these spoilers.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
What an episode.
Oh man. Season 6.
I love Season 6.
Yeah, as we're going, and I realize every episode, this is like one of my favorite seasons.
Yeah,
no question.
Sure.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So what's your number 5 for this episode, Lady Rachel?
Let's see. My number 5 is the small council kicks Cersei out.
Crazy scene, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think finally Cersei is getting dealt what she's been dealing to all of these people. The tables have been turned. They've seen her weak and are gonna, like Jamie said, take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, like she can't come back after that.
No.
Well,
and
maybe she can.
So Pycelle farts.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, I love that. He's talking about what a monstrosity the mountain is and that Qyburn should do away with him. And this is what got him kicked out of the Citadel. And
yep.
He's talking total shit about the mountain, and he walks and he looks over and he lets out this little fart. And the comedic humor in that is so perfect.
Oh yeah, he's talking all this shit and doesn't realize that the mountain is right there, and he looks over and it just can't help it, just squeezes out a fart. I feel like this scene has to be referencing that bad lip reading video, the famous Game of Thrones one.
Oh, you think so?
Medieval Fun Time Land. Yeah, it has to be, because there's that whole scene where the guy, the supplicant, shows up at court. My hot dog stand's got no ketchup. And then Grand Maester Pycelle lets out a fart that lasts for like 35 seconds.
Hot dog stand's got no ketchup.
Every time you think it's over, he's like,
he keeps going.
Yeah, so I feel like this scene has to be referencing that.
Probably. It was just so funny. And no one even bats an eye. No one looks over at him or anything.
They're all too terrified by the mountain.
Yeah.
It's so great.
So Cersei looks over to Lena and she's like, why the fuck are you here? Who invited you to this tea party? And Lady Olenna was like, I'm here to help on several issues, such as Marjorie's, that's what she implies here, the Queen's imprisonment. And Cersei's like, I'm free. And Elena's like, you're not the Queen. You're not married to the king. Like, Marjorie is the Queen.
Yeah, she mentions that whole thing, and Cersei's like, oh yeah, we do need to address my grievances for being captured. And she's like, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
So Kevin, who we know is not afraid to stand up to Cersei when shit goes wrong, he's like, you have no place here. What are you doing here? Like, you're not the Hand. What are you doing here? You're not welcome here. And Jaime's like, well, I'm Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and the Kingsguard does have a position. And Pycelle's like, well, Sir Gerald Hightower had a seat on the Mad King's Council. But King Robert saw things a little bit different. Yeah,
it was interesting that he mentioned Sir Gerald Hightower because he was one of the 2 Kingsguard that we saw at the Tower of Joy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, the White Bull, Lord Commander of the Mad King's Kingsguard, killed
that's right.
at the Tower of Joy right before Arthur Dayne.
I love learning stuff like that. It always enhances my watches the next time around.
Totally.
So Jaime pulls up some chairs and they both sit down, and Kevin is just not having any of this. And he's like, you guys can stay, but we're going to leave. And they all get up and walk out of the room.
Oh, man, that part is so funny, too.
It's so gangster, that moment. And Olenna looks over at her and is just like, haha, fuck you. Yep. Like, in your face.
Yeah, Cersei's like, well, you can't make us leave, so we better just start talking.
And they're like, nope.
We can't make you leave, but you can't make us stay. Unless you plan to have that thing murder all of us, which I thought was a pretty cool line.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how they get up like one by one too. Like, it's Kevin, then it's Olenna, and then Tyrell, which I found interesting. So Mace Tyrell is no longer team Cersei. I just found that very interesting. He completely gravitates towards power, and after everything that's happened to Cersei, he no longer sees her as that.
Yep.
So he's gonna switch his alliances to who's ever in power.
Team Kavan.
Kavan,
yeah.
Yeah.
I like when Pycelle goes to leave, too, and he sort of stops right in front of Gregor for a second and gets like
looks at him,
a little flustered and scurries past.
An abomination.
Yeah.
Yes.
So cool.
And it's just, we're just left with Cersei and the Mountain left in the room.
So much fun mountain stuff this season.
Yeah. So that was my number 5. Do you have any notes you want to add?
Not really. That pretty much covers it.
Cool. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Varys, the Happy Maker.
Okay.
I just thought how it was so funny. He's like, me. He calls in that whore who participated with slitting that Unsullied's throat and has been working with the Harpies. And he's like, I don't torture people. That, that gets answers, but a lot of the times they're the wrong answers.
Yeah, because usually people are just saying whatever they want, whatever they think they want to hear to stop the torture.
Exactly. So he's like, I get the information I want by a different means, by making people happy, which I thought was hilarious. And immediately he starts to like squeeze her by mentioning her son. Like first he's like relating to her, like building her up, like, yeah, you've done, more than most people have done, sacrificing your body for a cause, etc. But you helped the Sons of the Harpy for treasonous purposes, and we both know what the penalty is for that. So he's like, he mentions her son, and she's like, oh, like all offended that he's, threatening her son, and he's like, no, you're misunderstanding me. Like,
children are blameless.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah, I've never hurt them. So he's implying that he has a history of hurting people, but never children, which is great.
That's true.
And so she says, if I tell you, they'll kill me, or otherwise you'll kill me. Either way, I'm dead. And he's like, from your perspective, that makes sense. I like the way he comments about perspective.
Yes. It's like perception is reality.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense from your perspective, although I have a different perspective. And I think it's important you try to see things from my perspective, just as I will try to see them from yours.
I like that he knows their names.
Oh, yeah. He knows everything about this woman.
So he's showing to her, like, I know a lot about you. Like,
yeah, like I know stuff.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, we both know the penalty is death, basically. I'm trying to help your son by giving you an out. And you're in a terrible situation here. You've been busted. You're dead if you don't talk to me. You're dead if you do talk to me. They'll kill you. So obviously it's not a good place to be. But he's offering her like a real serious solution.
Yeah.
Ticket out with a ton of money.
Get the hell out of town.
To keep her son healthy and to just get out of there and start fresh. And it's a really good tactic to get what he wants, really. Just super slick.
Yeah, I mean, we see this before with Shay as well, that this is a tactic that he's used to using to manipulate situations that
true.
Are not in his favor.
Just in Shay's case, it wouldn't have made her happy because she actually seemingly wanted Tyrion.
Yes, but he felt like maybe he could use that tactic on her.
Yep.
So clearly he's used this tactic enough to know that it works on most people. It didn't happen to work on Shay, but here he is doing it again.
Yeah, and it definitely works this time.
Yeah. I mean, she's like, doesn't her kid have a breathing problem or something?
Yeah. That's all we know. How will poor Dom get on without his mother?
Yeah. So, I mean, a bag of silver, that's a lot of money to her, probably.
Yeah. So, it's so funny. She's like, if I tell you anything, they'll kill me. So either you kill me or they do. And he brings up that whole perspective thing again. Yes, from your perspective, this is a problem.
It's not my problem. It's your problem.
However, there's a third option. And he kicks at a bag at his feet, a big bag full of silver.
Yeah, he's like, we're going to have one of these soldiers carry this down.
Yeah.
Because I'm weak.
The boat sails at dawn, but you need to decide now. A new life for you and Dom, or we'll cut your fucking head off, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
So
those are your two choices.
Yeah. He made her an offer she couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
Totally an offer she couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
Well, motherfucking played, Varys. That wraps up my number 5.
Nice. Good number 5.
Varys, the happy maker.
The happy maker.
Yeah. How about your number 4?
So my number 4 is the Tower of Joy.
Nice. That's my number 3. So we will collab a little bit.
Yes. I love this.
Fuck yeah.
When I first watched this, I really knew nothing about the prophecies, or, the speculation of Jon being a Targaryen.
Oh, wow.
Or any of that. So this scene, when I very first watched the series, felt very out of place.
You're
in
like,
the
what
fact
the fuck
that,
is going on here?
why are we seeing this battle between 6 people? What's the significance of this?
Yeah,
I was a little confused. And we hear the girls screaming in the tower, and obviously Ned says in the scene, where's my sister? So I knew it had something to do with his sister at that point, but I had no clue that was Sir Arthur Dayne. I had no clue
epic.
that it was
or the significance of any of it.
Yeah, that. So knowing what I know now, this scene weighs so much more significantly as far as storyline goes for me.
When I had watched it, I had read the books at this point, so I knew about Arthur Dayne and knew about the Tower of Joy and everything like that. I think that in between seasons, I had sort of been spoiled by hearing that there would be a Tower of Joy scene in the upcoming season 6 at the time.
Oh, got it.
And so that was sort of lingering on the back of my mind. And then when it cut to that shot of the tower in the distance with all the horses riding towards it, I just instantly knew Tower of Joy. And like, yeah, just like every time that pops on the screen, I just like stop breathing. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be epic.
Yeah. And it is pretty epic here. So, I love how fast those horses are going, and they're approaching the tower, and Sir Arthur Dayne kind of stands up and puts his helmet on. Yeah, and Bran's like, Sir Arthur Dayne. And the three-eyed raven says, Sword of the Morning. And it's just such a fucking cool title, right? It is. And it's, from a first-time viewer's perspective that has no history of it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, so he's a knight. They call him the Sword of the Morning, just like Jaime's called the Kingslayer. Yep. Like, it didn't pack any major meaning. And now that what he says right there is so significant. And then also that Howland Reed is there. And I love how Ned said, he's like, we looked for you. Like, where were you? I looked for you on the Trident. Your prince is dead. The Mad King is dead. Like, where the fuck were you? You're sitting here at the tower. It's so funny too. Yeah. The other Kingsguard, Sir Gerald Hightower, I think he's like, your friend, the usurper, would be dead if we'd been there at the Trident. I'm like, damn, that's a bold statement, man. That's a really bold statement. Robert was quite the warrior. Yeah, and considering that these two get cut down by just these like 6 guys or whatever, just having those two be at that battle like may or may not have made that big of a difference, Yeah, and I was also, as a first-time viewer, still a little confused of who Rhaegar Targaryen was. Sure. So like, I knew that he was dead at this point because we get that information in this scene, but it didn't really click to me that he's Dany's brother, that, the whole thing about the winter roses in Lyanna's lap, like that all kind of, and maybe I was just not paying too much attention and just didn't like look into it. It's a lot of information. That whole thing like kind of like glossed over when I first watched the series. The second time around, not so much. I picked up more on the importance of it. The moment when all the laughter died. When we learn about Rhaegar and Lyanna and everything. Yeah, exactly. So, and we get the tagline, I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. Yes, so cool. Mance said that to Stannis right before he died. Jon says that to Dany in season 7. Yeah, and they put on their helmets and, start to get ready for battle. And I love Sir Arthur Dayne. He goes, and now it begins. And Ned goes, no, now it ends. That was an awesome impression. I think this actor did such a great job portraying young Ned. Totally. I knew immediately that it was Ned Stark before Bran was even like, that's my father, Yeah. He does such a good job with the accent, with the look, with the furrowed brow. The body language. Like, so he did such a great job. I hope we get to see more of him this season. I bet you we will, because Bran's going to be on, Wi-Fi. Totally. So we start getting the battles, and I noticed instantly that Sir Arthur Dayne fights with 2 swords, and that's not very common. So fucking cool. At least in this show. We see it with the wildlings, but not like Westerosi knight fashion. I've seen it in video games before too, but never like with a medieval style knight on screen. It's sick. Yeah, it was really badass, and the whole choreography of that whole scene was really well done. The sweeping motions, I love the way the camera kind of circled around what was going on. Yep. So you had like a bird's eye kind of 360 view of the battle scenes, and people are getting their freaking guts slashed on and their necks ripped open, and it's impaled on swords. Yeah. So I'll kind of like let you take it from here, because I know that this is your number 3. And I think this part's kind of better explained by you, because you're so descriptive with battle scenes. Well, I don't know about that, but
So much cool stuff to talk about here. Before the fight starts, there's a couple of things that are worth mentioning also as well. Arthur Dayne walks over and shoves his sword in the dirt. And if you look closely, you can see a sunrise on the pommel. And yeah, like a golden sun with rays shooting out from it. And everybody knows that the Sword of the Morning, certain members of the House Dayne, every once in a while will be worthy enough to wield the ancestral blade Dawn.
Oh.
And they're given the title Sword of the Morning. So Arthur Dayne was famous for having wielded this blade thousands of years old, which was allegedly forged from the heart of a fallen star. Some people think that Dawn may be the original Lightbringer, for instance.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, pale white blade. Yeah, it's really cool.
Was this sword pale white?
Not so much. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's a detail that they may have left out from the show.
Got it.
So there, it's just really freaking cool. That sword is like, it's missing at this point in the story, in the books and on the show. So people have been speculating about like where it is and what'll happen. After the Tower of Joy battle, Ned Stark apparently returned the blade to Starfall, the castle of House Dayne, and Ashara Dayne, upon learning of her brother's death, threw herself from the tower and committed suicide.
Oh, shit.
This is like, yeah, Arthur Dayne is like the most beloved knight of the time period, one of them. Like as Bran said, as father said, he was the greatest swordsman he's ever seen. He's highly respected. He was Jaime the Kingslayer's idol before he was the Kingslayer. He actually knighted Jaime on the battlefield after the defeat of the Kingswood Brotherhood, after he'd crossed swords with the Smiling Knight, the Joker. But yeah, that sword is the one that Jaime was knighted with, and it was so sharp that even just tapping his shoulder with it sliced through his whatever he had, the cloth he had on his shoulder, and it cut him a little bit. Super, super sharp sword. It's not supposed to be Valyrian steel, but it's supposed to be like equally as powerful, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you know how like sometimes when something burns afterwards, it'll be like white. The charcoal will be like white.
Ashy. Yeah.
Yeah. So people think that this may be the original Lightbringer sword, and that it was burned to being white by the time the long night was over, basically.
Oh, wow.
Or something like that.
I love it. That's so cool.
Interesting. So they basically divulged that Rhaegar, the prince, wanted them at the Tower of Joy also, which is an interesting thing. Ned's like, why weren't you at the Trident to protect Rhaegar, basically? And they say he wanted us here. So immediately we know that something important is going on here. Typically, Kingsguard will only be tasked with protecting the royal family. So for them to not be with their prince, at least Barristan was,
is really weird.
Really weird. And you'd expect there to be a member of the royal family at this place if they're there, basically. As we know now, there is a couple members of the royal family here at this point, which would be Lyanna Targaryen after the wedding, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And Jon, or Aegon Targaryen. So now what we know, it makes sense.
Sure.
But at the time, it was just a little clue for everybody. The prince wanted us here. And naturally, Ned's like, where's my sister? And it's just, this is when he says, it's I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And it's just so sad that they can't just talk this out.
I know.
Obviously, Ned doesn't want Lyanna dead.
No.
So their interests are aligned as being Kingsguard and tasked to protect the royal family, as well as being a family member of this royal family member, So neither of them want the baby or Lyanna dead. The Kingsguard must be conflicted, though, because Robert, at this point, they called him the usurper. So it's become clear that Robert has usurped the line and taken the kingship for himself. And he is attempting to kill all of the Targaryens. Rhaegar's dead. The Mad King is dead. Elia has been murdered, I believe, at this point because King's Landing has already been sacked, etc. Aegon and Rhaenys, the two little babies, are dead.
Ugh, so sad.
Yeah. The Mad King's wife has escaped with Dany, who's like going to be born at any minute, basically, or whatever. Maybe they're already gone. I can't remember. So basically, they think that Robert will want Lyanna, at least the baby, dead, if not Lyanna as well, because he's in the process of snuffing out all the remaining Targaryens, essentially.
Which is why it's essential for for Ned to keep Jon's secret.
Right. So it's too bad they couldn't have talked this all out, because instead of Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower dying, for instance, they could have
all protected her together.
Yeah, protect them together. They could have left in secret to whisk them away to be with Daenerys and, or something like that. But obviously they can't trust Ned because he has conflicted allegiances, allegiance to his sister, but at the same time, allegiance to Robert and everything like that. It's too bad that Ned didn't just sit the throne himself, because then there would have been no conflict.
Yeah, definitely.
It's sad how they can't just talk it all out, basically.
Yes. It is sad, but I also see why they can't. They're on opposing sides right now.
Yeah, it's fucked.
Even if they have the same agenda.
There was speculation before this scene came out, at least that in the book speculation, that maybe that's what did happen, that Ned and Arthur faked his death. But because they're apparently, after this, Ned pulled down the Tower of Joy. He and Howland Reed basically dismantled the whole tower and used the stones to build cairns over the bodies of the fallen Kingsguard and people that died in this battle.
Oh, crazy. I like that.
Interestingly, yeah. So as far as we know, Arthur Dayne is buried under that cairn, but we haven't seen his body, type thing.
Yeah, he's like Tupac.
Yeah. Totally. Oh, that's hilarious.
Nice.
So, and then there's that great line, now it begins. No, now it ends. Fucking great. Monumentally epic moment. So insane.
So crazy.
So the battle happens, and Arthur pulls Dawn back out from the dirt and starts swinging both of these swords around, and all these guys are attacking from all angles, and he's just like this.
He's cutting them up.
Yeah, the moves are amazing. And he's just blocking blades from all different angles with all these different crazy sword motions, swinging them all around. And this is really impressive choreography, for sure. It's pretty amazing. And Gerald Hightower is, impaling people with his blade and all this, and eventually gets killed himself.
Yeah. Is he the one that gets his neck split open?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he gets stabbed through the throat, I think. And so he drops. Yeah. And then Ned and the three remaining guys all kind of team up and surround Arthur Dayne. And this is when we really get to see him unleash his sword capabilities. And you know how a lot of times in movies with fight scenes like this, there'll be a group of guys surrounding one guy, and one at a time, the guys will attack the person. Typically, they'll fend off one attacker at a time. But here, everybody attacks simultaneously. So he's got like 4 blades coming at him from all different angles. And he's just swinging all those, both of his swords around like nobody's business, deflecting everything and cutting them down one by one, until finally it's just him and Ned Stark. And Bran...
And you can tell who's better.
Yeah, it's like abundantly clear after Arthur Dayne cuts down all these people, whittling down the battle to just him and Ned. And Bran is like, what the hell is going on here? And he's like, he's better than my father, having this moment of realization where he discovers how outrageously outmatched Ned was here. The Three-Eyed Raven confirms it. Far better. And Bran is trying to figure out what happened. He's like,
but my father beat him. Yeah, like he's clearly alive.
I've heard the story 1,000 times. He's like, I know he beat him. And this has me wondering, is this lie about, because obviously Howland Reed comes from behind after Ned is disarmed. He's about to be killed, and Howland Reed saves him.
Stabs him in the back, too.
Yeah, stabs him right through the back. Oh, man. And he drops Dawn drops his swords, and Ned picks up Dawn and uses this blade to kill the Sword of the Morning. Oh, it's fucked up. It's like kind of the way Ned was killed by his own sword.
Ice. Yeah, it's karma.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's the first time that connection hit me just right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so he kills Arthur Dayne with his own sword, and then he ends up being killed himself by Ice, his own blade, later on in life, at the end of his life. So that's pretty crazy. And so I was wondering, is this lie that Ned defeated Arthur Dayne, is this lie responsible for Ned's reputation as a swordsman?
It could possibly be.
Because nobody seems to have like really seen him fight too much. Like, you know, like...
Well, and he doesn't fight with Jamie. Like, he doesn't...
Yeah, he doesn't fight in the tournaments.
He says, I'm not going to fight in the tourney because I don't want people to see...
what I can do. Maybe that's really saying, like, because I can't really do as much as the
really legends
say. Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Although he does put up a good fight with against Jamie in the street there.
I think he's quite talented.
Yeah.
But that could have some merit. Like, he doesn't want to show too much because then it would be more obvious. Whereas if he has to defend himself, he'll defend himself.
Yeah, like if he fought at a bunch of tourneys and got his ass whooped publicly
all the time.
A bunch of times, you know, people would be like, there's no way that Arthur Dayne was taken out by this guy. And then there would be questions to be answered and things like that.
Yeah.
Karens to dismantle the verify deaths and things. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think there's some merit to that for sure.
Yeah, it's possible. So, yeah, he disarms Ned, who drops his sword, and then Howland Reed stabs him through the back, and he falls, and Ned takes him out, and all of a sudden, a woman screams from the tower. And I've heard people speculating that there also may be a baby crying inside of that scream as well.
Oh,
kind of
really?
Together. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I'll have to listen to it again.
Yeah, either her voice cracks or there's a baby in there wailing at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So it's possible that's the first anybody has heard of John, basically.
Oh, crazy.
Aegon up there. So Bran's like, what the fuck was that? What's in that tower? And he should have realized.
The Raven's like, we gotta go.
Yeah, that's enough for one day. And all the viewers, all the book readers especially, are like, no, we need to see what's in the tower. We can't wait. This is ridiculous.
You have to wait until season 7, episode 7 to confirm this.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it was? Season 7?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's when we find out 100% that Jon is a Targaryen, because we find that realization while they're having sex with each other.
Oh, man.
Bran is talking to Sam.
Oh, right. They confirm it with their each other's information. We get the reveal, though, the transformation.
We get the reveal that she had a baby.
I think we get the reveal of the transformation where it goes from little baby's face to Jon's face. It's during the King in the North scene when Lyanna Stark is naming Jon as the King in the North. I think that's in the end of this season. So we find out that Jon was the baby at the end of this season. And then during season 7, we find out that he was actually a Targaryen and that they were married.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. Oh, how could I forget about that scene? That's such a goosebumpy scene.
Yeah, totally. So great.
Nice.
So we'll get that in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
The initial reveal, but then the confirmation comes later.
Yes, that's
the cross-information analysis. So Bran is just not having it. We know he loves to stay inside these visions, whether he's warging into summer or whether he's touching the roots. Yeah, he's chasing the dragon constantly. And so there's a big ass dragon up in or baby dragon in that tower at this point. Oh man, that was a nice metaphor that worked out perfectly. So Ned starts running over to the tower, and the three-eyed Raven's like, we got to get out of here. That's enough. And Bran's like, no, I have to see where he's going. And he chases after Ned and yells, Father! oh my God, it's such an epic moment. And it like echoes like, Father, Father, Father. And Ned stops on the stairs and turns back around to look.
Do you think he hears him? Do you think he heard him?
I think he did. I think that he heard him.
I do too.
It's almost like Bran has some kind of like transcendent ability to communicate with people throughout time through the werewoods. It's like these accidental blunderings that he's accomplished in doing so have had crazy repercussions. Like he sort of accidentally taps into Hodor's mind.
Yeah.
And that Hodor's Hodor. And then Theon may hear him whispering through the leaves at Winterfell in the books also.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty. Every time there's people who every time you hear leaves rustling in the books,
it's Bran.
Yeah, basically
peeping through the bushes.
Yeah, totally. So, and then here, it's entirely possible that he came really close to fucking up Ned here and preventing his own existence from ever happening. Like if he had like tapped into Ned the way that he tapped into Hodor accidentally, or the way that he does coming up, imagine that. He may have just prevented his own existence. Dun, dun, dun.
That's a mind fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ned stops and turns. He had to have heard something, and it's
leaves rustling.
Yeah, he doesn't have any kids at this point. Like he hasn't returned with Jon yet, so he doesn't know that Rob's been born, for instance, unless he just got word that he's been born. But like, it's not like somebody would say, "Father," and Ned Stark would turn.
He doesn't have like a teenage child.
Yeah. So it's interesting. He seems like he heard something, and whatever it was powerful enough to make him stop when he's running to find Lyanna. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's just took out King Koopa Troopa Bowser, and he's just about to get the princess in the tower, basically.
Yeah,
like Mario Brothers style. And
yes.
He stops on the stairway to take a glance around the scene. Obviously, he heard something.
Yeah, I think he heard him.
Yeah, and then boom, the vision ends, and we're like, no, all of us collectively, we need to see what's in there. We know Jon's in there. We know what's his real name. We're wondering.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just such a great scene. And he's like, what the hell again? Why did you take me away? Like we need to go back there. Something is important is happening. He can tell.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's like, he heard me. My father heard me. And the Three-Eyed Raven's like, maybe he heard the wind.
The leaves rustling.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes on to say the past is already written. The ink is dry. And I'm wondering, is it? Obviously not, because he ends up tapping Hodor coming up in a couple episodes.
That's true.
But the Three-Eyed Raven seems to be convinced that this isn't possible, basically. He's telling him that you can't interact with these people through these visions. That everything's already...
he interacts with the Night King. The Night King touches Bran.
That's live time, though.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It's not in the past or the future.
Right. Yeah. They seem to be like meeting like simultaneously.
Yeah. Got it. That makes more sense.
Whereas like Three-Eyed Raven is saying that these are more like memory banks that we're just sort of looking through, but it's just like information on a cartridge. Basically, it's not like, apparently not though. It seems like Bran is actually having an effect on these events, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Part of that whole like time, it's a giant mind fuck as we get into the whole Hodor loop and all this crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, we got in it with our round table, I think, for the Red Wedding episode.
Oh right,
and we were like going around in circles with it. It was awesome.
So funny. So
nice.
Bran's like, he's just too curious. He needs to go back in there. And the Three-Eyed Raven warns him again about the dangers of being in too long and never returning. And I'm wondering if, because the Three-Eyed Raven seems pretty lucid, you know what I mean? Like he seems like pretty with it and regular.
Like coherent.
Yeah. Whereas in a few episodes, Bran turns into sort of like robot Bran, computer Bran, where he's
I think because that he was overloaded.
Yeah.
Because he had to learn it all so fast and not through the enough time that the Three-Eyed Raven wanted him to, which is why he kind of gives Bran these like bursts of information.
Right.
When the Three-Eyed Raven realizes he's going to die, he basically like just sends Bran into like turbo upload mode.
Yeah,
and I
totally.
think it kind of left him off. Like,
Yeah, like
because
this
he saw so much at once.
Yeah, exactly.
That his brain kind of misfires now.
It's like the computer Bran style of demeanor is like a side effect of being in too long, like he's warning about here or something.
Yeah.
It's almost like
perhaps
when you're resurrected, we'll talk about this in a little bit more, but how Beric says that every time he comes back, it's like he's a little bit less. There's a piece of him gone. It seems like the same type of thing when you go into the werewood memories and come back. Like maybe you're losing a little bit of yourself every time. And that's why it's dangerous to stay in there too long.
Yeah, definitely.
But then again, the Three-Eyed Raven has apparently been sitting there under the tree for 1,000 years, as he tells us in this episode. So that shoots to shit any theories about the Three-Eyed Raven being Blood Raven on the show, for instance.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and so the Three-Eyed Raven continues and tells Bran, like, even though I've been here 1,000 years, like, you're not going to stay here. You're going to leave. And Bran's like, why were you here that long then? And he says, I was waiting for you. So Bran must be fucking important. You know, if this dude's been waiting 1,000 years for him to arrive, like he's been prophesized. Does that mean that Bran is the prince that was promised?
Oh.
I mean, like, 1,000 years, that's a long time.
That is a long time. Maybe Bran is going to play a part in bringing about the prince or princess who was promised.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think he is, though.
Yeah, I doubt it too. So the Three-Eyed Raven's like, listen, I know you're frustrated. I don't blame you, but you're not going to be here forever. You're going to leave, but before you leave, you need to learn. And Bran's like, learn what? Everything. So ominous. And with access to the memory banks of Planetos, basically through the Werewood network, it's almost like Bran theoretically could learn everything.
Yeah, definitely.
It's fucking wild, man. Really cool.
That's why I think Bran gets a little overloaded when the Three-Eyed Raven sends him into his like warging state and then gets killed. So now he's not there to regulate it.
Yep.
So he's just getting like flooded. He's like getting waterboarded.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for my number 3.
Okay.
And your number 4.
So we need to do your number 4.
All right. My number 4 is The Miracle at the Wall.
Okay. Is this his resurrection?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my number 1. It had to be my number 1.
Yeah, right.
Like, we see his butt.
Yeah, so I just finished with my number 3. How about you take this and just roll with that, and I'll throw it, I'll contribute where necessary.
Sure. So my number 1 goes down through the butt scene into Jon meeting up with his buds again out in the courtyard.
I will say he is looking quite fit.
Yeah. So Davos, we pan in on Davos and he's staring at Jon like, what? Are you serious? Like, he's alive. His eyes are open.
Out.
And I think there's a tinge of, is he a White Walker?
Yeah.
Or is he Jon Snow?
Right. Like, is this a good resurrection or an evil resurrection? Yeah. Is this the Bible or is this Resident Evil? Which direction is this story taking?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Melisandre birth a demon. So what is this thing arising here?
Hilarious.
So we get, Jon Snow. He slowly sits up at the table and the camera pans down and we get to see his cute little apple butt. And he's breathing
them apple bottom jeans
with the fur.
With the
fur. Jon is like sucking in as much oxygen as he can. And he turns his head at Davos. And I love we get Ghost here. Ghost is standing behind Davos, like panting.
Whimpering a little
and his
bit.
eyes are glowing. Oh, I love it. And
Jon is freaked out too.
So he's like looking at Davos. He's trying to like process what's going on. And I think maybe his memory starts kicking back in because he starts like looking down and he sees his wounds and he's like, oh my God, like,
yeah, totally.
I have like six open like stab wounds on my body. So
And then he freaks.
kind of like freaks out and like falls off the table and rushes towards Davos, and Davos grabs him and he's like, easy, like easy. And just like kind of like ushers him back.
Catches him.
Yeah. And then Melisandre comes in.
Yeah, it sort of echoed Cersei arriving at the Red Keep and being sort of caught by Qyburn and having the cloak wrapped around her. Same type of thing here. Jon, in his lowest moment, returning from dead, stumbling over to Davos, who catches him and throws the cloak around him, tells him it's going to be okay.
It's going to be all right. And so Melisandre comes in and she is like kind of bewildered.
Looks like she saw a ghost, you could say.
Yeah. I think she's very surprised and bewildered and astonished and
thankful.
And I think she gets this rush of like juice back into her reason for being there, because
maybe it wasn't all a lie.
Yeah, she kind of like rushes over to him and Davos is like, dude, what do you remember? And Jon's like, oh my God, they fucking stabbed me.
Yeah,
Ollie fucking stabbed me in the heart.
Ollie.
Ollie.
I shouldn't be here. That was an intense line.
No, I love the way he says it too, because he kind of like catches his breath at the very end. Like it's almost like a sob. Like he is just beyond comprehension at this point.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And he goes, the lady brought you back.
Oh my God.
And Melisandre kind of rushed up to him and she's
kneels. This
is what I was kind of talking about, her like getting kind of jazzed up about it. She's like, after you died, like, what did you see? What, like, where did you go? I want to know everything. And Jon says nothing. There was nothing at all.
So fucking ominous.
Oh.
So fucking ominous.
And I thought maybe that's a little bit of a foreshadow of how this whole story is going to end.
Yeah,
it's just going to be
nothing.
Nothing.
the dragons and the White Walkers are like a unstoppable object meeting an immovable.
Yeah, ice and fire converging into one, and it just erupts the whole planet.
It creates a black hole. Half of all matter shoots out into space and half collapses into itself. Oh, warping space and time.
Yes, it creates a giant black hole.
Yeah,
and
that'd be cool.
I loved that line. I think you could kind of read into it both ways. Like, there's nothing beyond death, or because Jon was not meant to die,
he never,
or like he was meant to come back. He never like went, if you believe in afterlife stuff, like to the afterlife.
He never reached the Nightlands. He was
basically
back.
like in limbo or purgatory. He was just kind of floating around in another dimension or another realm.
The netherworld.
Yes.
Oh man, that's intense. And
and so Melisandre starts getting all weird on him. She's like, oh my gosh, the Lord let you come back. Stannis was not the prince. You have to be. Oh my God, I'm gonna freak out. And Davos is like, girl, get yourself together. Can we have a moment?
Give us a minute with this crap, Mel.
I don't need to hear this bullshit again. Like, you are so...
It's too soon, man.
Like, you're so addicted to this cause. And, like, I just got done listening to you tell me that Stannis was the prince that was promised, and he's dead. His whole family's dead.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to listen to this crap.
Plus, Jon doesn't need to be thrust into this, pressure. He just needs to be
not right now. Like, he's
life.
trying to imagine trying to process your own death.
Yeah.
Like, you're not meant to process that.
Right.
And he kind of has to process it. Like, he remembers that they stabbed him and killed him. They stabbed.
They stabbed me.
They stabbed me. Yeah. And so I love Davos sums it up so well, as he normally does. You were dead and now you're not. That's completely fucking mad, seems to me. I can only imagine how it seems to you.
That's completely fucking mad.
And John's like,
so
fuck,
funny.
man, I was doing what I thought was best for everybody,
Right,
and they freaking killed me for it. Like, my own brothers killed me for doing this.
What a heartbreaking realization, too, where he's just like, I tried to follow my heart and help people, and this is the thanks that I get. What's the point?
And this is kind of where, like, the processing of his own death comes in, because John's like, I am back. Like, I don't understand. And Davos is like, dude, I don't know either.
Why am I back?
I don't think we'll ever know.
What does it matter?
I guess it just doesn't matter. You just have to keep going and clean up as much of the shit as you can.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool sentiment. Like, why, like, maybe you don't even worry about it. Like, it doesn't matter. What does it matter? You're here. Make the best of it. Great motivational speaker.
Yeah. And John's like, I thought I was doing that and I failed. I got killed for it. Like, how can I, like, move on from that? Right. And Davos is like, good. Now go fail again.
Yes, such a great attitude. It reminds me of Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes.
Or how they say, what do you do when you fall off the horse?
Get back on.
Fool me once. Fool me. You can't get fooled again. George Bush. Can't get fooled again. Oh, man. Davos
is the man. Jon Snow's alive again. And I remember watching this for the first time. I was like, oh my God, finally. It's been 3 episodes into this season, and finally Jon's alive. And I love that the show does that, because everybody expects for him to come back the season premiere. Everybody expected that.
Totally.
And then he didn't come back the season premiere. And then episode 2 rolls around and he doesn't come back in episode 2 either. You're kind of like,
well, he kind of does. Just the last couple frames.
At the last second. Yeah. And then we're left with a crazy cliffhanger. Like, what is he?
Right.
Because, I mean, he obviously has brown eyes when he opens them. So, kind of instantly he's not a White Walker. Mm-hmm. But he also is under some type of weird magic. And I know that there's speculation out there that he's not really alive. Like, he's just kind of animated.
Yeah, that he's like a fire white.
And I could be wrong. I could have read this somewhere and I don't remember the source. So I could be... But don't his wounds, like, not heal? His stab wounds?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, Barrick's wounds look like they've healed.
Yeah. Because I know, like, in season 7, they look pretty raw still, but they could just be really bad fresh scars, too.
Dany loves that shit.
Yeah, she's like, hoo-hoo.
She's like, I can feel your heart.
Literally.
Yeah, her last husband was killed by a little cut to the chest, but Jon Snow, 5 or 6 full stab wounds to the chest, and he's still going strong. That's the type of man Dany needs in her life.
She likes the bad boys. Yeah, so then we cut down to Castle Black in the courtyard, and
the Night's Watch gathers to witness a miracle.
Yeah, and you can tell Jon is very weak. And you see the anxiousness across everybody's faces, and Jon appears and everyone's just kind of silent. And
oh my God.
He takes Davos's hand to walk down the stairs. Like, and it just kind of shows that he's weak. And
hey, that's like Davos acting as his hand also.
Oh, there you go. His half hand, because he has missing fingers.
Right. Corin. That's funny. These 2 significant characters that Jon has dealt with, each having half a hand, basically. I could see him actually doing that and saying, I name you my half hand. It's like a king in the North tradition to have a half hand now.
So they get down and he's like walking through a sea of people and they kind of part.
Yeah, and everybody's
to make
just
way for
astonished.
Him. Yeah, and then all of a sudden we see Tormund. I love Tormund. He's so awesome.
They think you're some kind of god. The man who returned from the dead.
I'm not a god.
What a strange thing to have to say.
I know.
Like, think you're a god.
I did just return from the dead.
But I'm not a god.
And I love Tormund. He gets all close and he's like, I saw your pecker.
Yeah, it's like, I know you're not a god. I saw your pecker. What kind of god would have a pecker that small?
And I love that Jon laughs at that. He kind of smiles, and Tormund gives him this big bear hug, and you can tell that it really hurts Jon. He like winces.
Like, yeah.
And then over Tormund's shoulder, he gets a glimpse of good old Ed, Dolorous Ed.
Oh man, so ominous. Your eyes are still brown. Is that still you in there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Don't burn my body just yet.
Ed laughs. He's like, that's funny. You sure that's still you in there? Which is ominous because like it's like, yeah, we don't know like how much of Jon is still left in there. But also it's like he's making a joke like, Jon Snow wasn't funny. Like, you didn't make jokes and stuff. Are you sure that's you? Like, you're acting funny all of a sudden? I don't know. I don't buy it.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, this just made me think though about that whole thing. Like Beric says that every time you come back, you're a little bit less.
Yeah.
And so Dolorous Ed's like, is that you in there? And it's sad because it's, you know, it seems to be Jon, but it's probably a little bit less of Jon. And I'm just wondering what little bit of Jon is gone. You know, is it a memory that's gone, or is it a piece of his personality, or what is it?
Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Well, that was my number 1 and your number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've already done your number 3. So are we on my number 3?
Yes, I believe so. Wow, this episode is like math class.
Is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
Not really. Yeah, I think we covered that scene pretty much entirely.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's just so legendary, and I thought that they did a pretty good job with it. It's like they did their best trying to come up with dialogue too, because like, what do you say when somebody comes back from the dead, and then how do you translate that onto screen?
Yeah, and I remember watching the HBO like after the throne, and they talked about the first scene when Davos and Jon were first looking at each other.
Right.
There was a lot more dialogue in that scene when initially shot. And when they watched it back, they felt that it was just not relatable because they just thought it would be more powerful with very little words because it reflected the astonishment. So they left it with just a couple lines, like when Davos is, you know, like easy.
Right.
You know, and Jon had a lot more dialogue, and they left it out because they wanted Kit Harington to process what it would feel like to come back from the dead.
So cool.
And to process something like that, you're probably not talking to somebody. You know, you're like, oh, hey, Davos, what's up? What did I miss?
Yeah. He's just more introspective and just trying to come to grips with what's going on. And yeah, that sort of sparsity of the dialogue increases the impact of the moment, I would say.
Yeah.
It's just so cool.
It's great. It was great acting by both of them, too.
Yeah. And I like how like the relationship that's starting to develop between Davos and Jon.
Definitely.
Like Davos, and they've always sort of had contact with each other since Stannis arrived at the wall, where Davos is telling him Stannis likes you and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
But obviously Davos likes him too.
Yeah.
You know, working Melisandre to resurrect him and everything like that. But he's the first one that's there when Jon comes back to life. And he remains close by his side in the future as things continue to unfold. So I just like how Jon comes to trust Davos and recognize his value, reciprocating the way that Davos sees Jon as being valuable and moral and everything like that too. It's just a really good pairing, I think.
Very much so. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Nice.
All right. Yeah. What do you got for your number 3?
So my number 3 is Jon's revenge. So perfect timing.
Oh, nice.
And Jon is sitting by the fireplace. He's contemplating what he needs to do. And Ed knocks on the door and he goes, it's time. And we all know that Jon does not like these situations. He feels it's a duty and he knows he has to do it.
And he's moping and stewing.
Yeah, he needs to be the one that swings a sword, but we know in the past that he has hesitated. He did lop off Janos Slint's head.
Oh,
and that's
man.
the first time we've watched Jon execute someone. And even in this scene, he struggles to execute them.
Right.
You can see it.
It's not something that the Starks tend to enjoy doing, although he's a Targaryen and half the Targaryens tend to like doing this.
Yeah, I mean, but he is half Stark too, you know, so he might...
You may not have my name, but you have my blood.
Yeah.
He's looking at his vest that he was wearing too when he got stabbed, when Dolorous Ed comes in.
Oh, yeah. I have that in my notes too, a little bullet point. He was holding his vest.
He's obviously like stewing on the whole event and like reminding himself.
Yeah, he's trying to process his own death. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, and also, like you were saying, how he's hesitant to do this. Like, he loves Ollie. You know, he doesn't want to have to kill Ollie. He doesn't want to have to kill any of these guys. He has to remind himself that they have it coming, basically. Yeah,
he killed him, not like attempted to. He actually did it.
Yeah, exactly.
And he actually echoes that sentiment of not wanting to kill Ollie to Sansa. He goes, I killed a boy younger than Bran. Like, that puts it into perspective. You know, like, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's...
shitty position.
Ollie deserves it because he's a murderer.
They should have never taken him in at the Night's Watch. They should have sent him down to some other, like, some village or something.
Hamlet.
Some other hamlet. Yeah, exactly. It's not a place for a boy up there.
No, it's not. So we see Melisandre creeping up in the balcony.
Yeah, we get to see everybody's reactions. Like, they all gather around for this event.
Yeah, so Bowen Marsh, Othel Yorwick, Alistair Thorne, and Ollie are all standing on these, you know, this board with their hands tied behind their back with nooses around their neck. And Jon Snow looks up at them and he's like, got you now.
Motherfuckers. Payback's a bitch.
If you have any last words, now is the time.
Yeah, and this guy...
and Bowen Marsh, dude, he shouldn't be alive. It's not right.
He echoes Jon's first sentiment, right? I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, which is kind of true.
He says it's not right. It's not right.
And Jon's like, neither was killing me. Yeah. And I loved that.
It's wrong.
So they all kind of go down the list. Othel Yorwick wants Jon to lie to his mom about getting killed by some wildlings.
I don't know if he's technically lying. He says, tell her I died fighting the wildlings. I think that in his mind, he legitimately thinks that that's what he was doing. By killing Jon Snow, the wildling lover who let the wildlings through the border, basically.
That makes sense.
He legitimately thinks that this was like, that's what he was doing, fighting the wildlings in the tradition of the Night's Watch.
Crazy.
Yeah, whereas, like, you know, from Jon's perspective or something like that, all he did was commit treason. I think that in his mind, he really buys it, you know?
Yeah, that makes more sense for sure. Because I was like, why would you lie to your mom?
Yeah. It's like, tell her I died doing the right thing.
Don't lie to your mom.
Yeah, totally.
Alistair was like, I would do it all over again.
Yep.
Because he's so just stuck in his ways, and we know how he feels about Jon.
And he's think like the same thing. He thinks he was fighting the wildlings, like doing the right thing. He like he says, if I had to do it all over, knowing where I'd end up, I'd pray I'd make the right choice again. And so he thinks it was the right choice. Yeah. Like he really thought that Jon was screwing over the Night's Watch and the kingdoms by letting in the wildlings. But it's never been about the wildlings, you know? I mean, obviously they've become a point of contention, but... It's about life and death. Yeah, it's about the White Walkers. That's why the wall exists, not the wildlings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about the Benjen Starks, baby.
I like Alistair's sentiment here. He goes, I fought, I lost, now I rest.
Yeah, great line.
It's a great line. And then Jon looks over at Ollie, and Ollie's just giving him the
stink eye. He's just looking at him
eye.
like, I would bite your throat out right now if I could.
What did you call him? A bag full of assholes? Crushed up assholes?
A bag full of mashed up assholes.
The second they showed his face, I was like, oh, there's the bag of crushed up assholes.
That's hilarious.
Oh my God. Yeah. So John kind of turns his back to them and he takes out Longclaw and ponders for a minute. And there was like a half a second where he hesitates. And he always does this before he goes to kill somebody.
Uh-huh.
It's like he has to get the momentum and convince himself to do it. He did it with Ygritte. He did it
with Janos.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, really tense moment before he cuts the rope.
Really tense. And he cuts the rope and we see them fall. We see them slide off and
amazing camera angle that's like looking upwards from the ground, and the camera kind of rocks, like it like jolts as the pieces of wood and everything fall down and like affect its footing. It's pretty great shot.
It's so good.
And Melisandre's watching and Tormund's watching and all these people are watching all this happen.
Yeah. And they're flailing, they're dying, and it's kind of hard to watch.
And John turns back around to watch them die too. And he looks mad when he does it. Like he cuts the rope and he's like, like doing his mopey, pouty thing. And then he turns around and anger flashes across his face and he looks up at them as they die.
Yeah. And there's a lot probably going through his mind right now, like
totally.
How can I lead this group when half of them think I'm a traitor? And, I think maybe the sentiment changed a little bit. Like, while a lot of the Night's Watchmen may have not agreed with John, they probably all didn't think that he should be killed for it.
Right.
So I think he has more people on his side than maybe he feels at this moment.
Hope so.
And I love what's coming up. And Dolorous Ed says we should burn the bodies. And John takes off his cape.
You should.
He's like, you should burn the bodies. And
oh my God, this is way out of left field. I did not see this coming.
Yeah, I didn't think about John not being the Lord Commander either.
Right.
And he lays his cloak across his forearms and hands it over to Ed.
What do you want me to do with this?
Wear it, burn it, whatever you want. You have Castle Black. My watch has ended. Ugh.
And he just sort of storms off. Yeah.
It's so true, though, because they take their oaths till death, and he died, so he's technically released from his oath.
Oh, yeah.
So now he can become king in the North.
Yeah, true. And there's a couple ways of looking at the Night's Watch Oath where it's like more literal, which is the way that Sam interprets it as well. Like, they say you can't take a wife, but I'll just have sex with my wildling woman every day and I won't marry her. So, very literally, or there's like metaphorically whereas it literally says like, until my death, metaphorically, it may mean, like forever, right? That I'm just going to be part of this order forever. So it could be looked at as breaking an oath from one perspective, as I think Lady Alicia of House Stout points out in the feedback coming up.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Is he breaking the oath? Is he not? Is Sam breaking the oath? Is he not? Just perspectives, as Varys would say.
Yes. A little bit of room for interpretation.
Yeah.
Yes, so that is my number 3.
Nice. Such an epic scene.
Yeah.
Really great.
So let's see. What is your number 2? Why don't we do your number 2 first?
All right. My number 2 is Qyburn's Candy Corner.
Oh, God.
And that's kind of referencing another podcast. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe Tyrion's Landing. Or maybe Game of Thrones, where they call they refer to this as Qyburn's Candy Corner with 3 Qs, like Qyburn with a Q, Candy is a Q, and Corner with a Q.
Nice.
Q cubed.
That's cool.
I thought it was really funny. So yeah, it cuts to like some of the lower chambers in the Red Keep, and Qyburn is hanging out with a group of little kids, and it turns out that they are Varys' spies, and he's talking with them, and this one little kid, and he seems to really care about these kids. He's like, your eye looks much better, Arthur. How about your mother's jaw? And the little kid's like, better. And your father? And the little kid's like, no one's seen him. And Qyburn's like, and no one will. That worked out rather nicely. I'm just like, oh shit.
What?
Sounds like the father was like abusing them or something like that, and he's been handled.
Yep, I think so.
So the another little kid asks, will Lord Varys ever come back? And Qyburn's like, I don't think so. Do you miss him? And what a revelation at this moment, like that we learn that his little birds, at least in part, are little kids.
They're children.
Yeah. And the kid's like, he was nice. He called us his little birds. He gave us sweets. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy.
Yeah, this is kind of revelation.
Yeah, totally. Like the inner workings of Varys' system. It's pretty cool. See how he operated and how he was able to gather all the intelligence that he has and everything like that. So Qyburn's like, oh, it's funny you should mention sweets. Guess what I happened to find today?
Candied plums
from Dorne. Yeah. And so he looks over at these boxes and all the kids are like, oh, they all like crowd around and grab a box of candied plums.
Swiping the boxes from each other.
So great.
Like, mine.
And Qyburn has such a funny line, man. He's so creepy, but at the same time, he's like, like conceptually, this is also creepy, but it's really like not that creepy. Like he's
just giving him candy,
he's like,
and not
really
like in a
nice
pedophilic way. Like, he's just being nice to them.
Yeah, as creepy as like the as creepy as a guy as Qyburn is,
the concept of it is creepy.
Yeah.
But he's not being creepy.
yeah. Like Qyburn's a creepy guy to begin with, and everybody knows about like the strangers with candy type of thing. So like,
exactly, like the concept is creepy.
Yeah, like it immediately gives you like that creepy vibe. But it's just so funny because he's so good with the little kids, and everybody loves him. And there's nothing like nefarious going on. He's just helping them out, giving them treats and doing favors for their families, basically. And all he wants is whispers. Like, what's wrong with that, you know?
I just want secrets.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So
secrets don't make friends, but friends make secrets.
Yeah. And I like the line, too, is like, all I need in return are whispers. Just a great way of delivering that little line. And while it's the creepiest shit ever, it's also like we were saying, you know, like not really that creepy.
Well, Varys did it too.
Yeah.
I mean, is it creepy when Varys does it?
I guess not, because as we learn also, he's like, I never have hurt kids. Like that's, you know, like they actually seem to care about these kids and are like helping them legitimately. So I don't know. It seems like a pretty good arrangement for the kids.
Yeah. They get to, you know, kill their abusive fathers and get candied plums from Dorne. Sounds like a good situation to me.
Yeah, totally. So lucky little kids have some powerful people, you know, backing them, which is kind of cool. So at this moment, the door opens and Frank and Mountain enters.
And they all stop eating their plums.
Everybody's
and they're like
the jaws dropped, eyes look up. And and Qyburn's like, no need to be afraid. This is Sir Gregor. He's friends with all my friends. I thought that was just a hilarious line.
I control him because I'm a necromancer.
Yeah, stay on my good side and you'll never have a problem with Sir Gregor.
He won't bash your head into a wall.
Unless I say so. He won't even ask how much if I say so. Oh man, I thought that was hilarious when Lady Lisa was on and we came up with the house words for Bronn's house.
Yeah,
how much?
That was awesome.
Fucking
how
great.
Much is perfect.
Definitely need that t-shirt. So the kids are staring at Gregor and he's like, run along, little birds. You like go, you can leave. And they all run out. And Cersei's like, oh, Varys' little birds. And Qyburn's like, your little birds now, your grace. Boom.
I bought them with candied plums.
Yeah, and all that power that Varys used to have, like, sort of inherited by Cersei at this point.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And Jaime is like looking at Gregor like, this is unbelievable. What did you do to him exactly? I haven't been able to get a clear answer. And it's funny that line, it's kind of like meta commentary, because for years, book readers have been speculating what the hell happened to Sir Gregor. Does he have a head? Is he undead? Is he, like a zombie? What the hell is going on? So it was like a little bit of meta commentary where Jamie is speaking for the audience, kind of. And Qyburn's response is creepy as hell. Like, what have you done to him? And he's like, oh, a number of things. So creepy.
I used a dwarf's head here and a little bit there.
Yeah. Oh, man. Little necromancy here. So funny. And Jamie's just kind of taunting him. Does he understand what we're saying? I mean, to the extent that he ever understood complete sentences in the first place. And Gregor, his head like turns quickly towards Jamie, and
Jamie's like,
gets all freaked out. Hilarious.
Sorry.
Gotta love Frank and Gregor, man. Such a great character, especially with this new, like this latest actor that's been playing the Mountain. They couldn't have
Thor.
Halfdor Bjornsson, freaking amazing. So Qyburn's like, yeah, he understands well enough. And he's like, Jamie's like, well, tell him to fucking go take out the High Sparrow then. And Cersei reveals her play here that she's planning on having Sir Gregor only fight one person because she wants a trial by combat.
Yeah.
Taking after, like, copying Tyrion's MO, basically. You know, every time he's like, I demand a trial by combat.
Yeah.
So she's doing that. And just the fact that she says that she wants a trial by combat, we know that it's probably not going to happen. It's like just mentioning it jinxes it, basically. And the High Sparrow gets Tommen to outlaw trial by combat pretty soon, so she's unable to demand a trial by combat. And it kind of
her plan is squashed.
Yeah. I guess the High Sparrow probably saw it from a mile away, worked little Tommen to get him to do it.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah. So Cersei's like, send your little birds everywhere. I want to know, like, who's planning to act against us, like, who's benefiting from our losses. Anybody talking shit about the naked queen who walked the streets covered in poo. You know, I want to covered in
poop boobs.
Oh, poop boobs. Ew.
I don't want to see these boobs.
I don't see these boobs. These boobs are too wrapped up in character development.
Ew.
So great. So she's like, I want to know who's talking about me and where they are, and that pretty much wraps
burn their
up that
houses
scene.
to the ground.
Yeah, burn them all to the ground.
Burn them all.
Any scene with Gregor in season 6 or 7 is just so great.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? Like, it doesn't get much cooler than the Mountain, than the Undead Mountain, Franken Mountain. So yeah, that's it for my number 2. Anything you want to add to that scene? Qyburn's Candy Corner?
Qyburn's Creepy Candy Corner? No, that's it for me.
All right. So how about your number 2?
My number 2 is Vyas Dothrak.
Aha.
And the Dosh Kaleen.
Nice.
So we're strolling down memory lane with Dany. She's reminiscing about her walks through the horse gates, except this time she's still on foot, I noted. So they find out that she's the widow of a call, and they still have her walking with this, you know. Yeah,
that's interesting. Maybe because she
didn't go to the Dosh Kaleen.
Yeah, dishonored the process by not going. I don't know.
Maybe. I just thought it was a little interesting, like, they could at least give her a
Nobody
horse.
Nobody will touch you, but we're going to make you walk, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they were so about tradition, like, oh, sorry, we're not going to touch you. I'm going to set you, unbind you here, but
right.
You're still going to get walked, or you're still going to have to walk, and you're going to get nudged by these people and, be told to move your ass.
Hey, great Khaleesi, move your ass.
Yeah. So Colin Morrow, he goes, welcome home, Khaleesi.
Home, last episode.
Yeah. And they walk her into the Dosh Kaleen, which I didn't realize until this scene that the Dosh Kaleen is where Dany did eat that stallion heart.
Right. Yeah, cool callback to that in this scene too.
Yeah, so I love how this show does like little nuances that call back to, that was not by no means an insignificant scene when she was eating the heart. But for the propulsion of her story, it's insignificant from her her baby died. And so that was kind of the end of that whole thing.
Yeah, it was like a red herring.
To be, back there and be reminded as a audience member that Dany did spend a lot of time here. She had a lot of important stuff happen to her here.
And we get that same actress as well, who's like, I remember when you ate the horse heart,
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. And so just a side note, they made that horse heart out of gummy bears. Like Gusher gummy bears.
It's gnarly.
So she was like eating a big gummy bear with syrup dripping down her hands and face.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, so the Dothraki ladies tells the Blood Riders to get lost. And let's call her the matron of the Dosh Khaleen.
Okay.
The matron nods to the younger women, and they kind of go over to Dany and just start ripping her clothes off. And Dany's like, wait, but what? And then she just stands up and looks super annoyed, and she's just standing there naked. And I just loved the look on her face. She's just like, fucking whatever. Okay. And then the young girl, who we get to know more in upcoming episodes, the young girl, gingerly goes to hand her the rags to wear, and Dany just snatches them out of her hand. The girl like scurries off, and
she has to threaten the matron here.
Yeah. And she's like, Dany's pissed. She's like, you're gonna regret this. I was the wife of a great call.
Yeah, you have made a mistake, one you will regret. I'm like, oh man, aggressive.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's kind of like her titles to the call, and he's like, you are nothing, queen of your millionth name or whatever.
Millionth of your name, queen of nothing.
And so the matron, she goes, we know who you are. We remember you eating the stallion heart here. Why didn't you come to us after your call died?
Yeah, it's so funny. And she's just like, because I'm fucking Daenerys Stormborn.
I'm Dany, bitches.
Yeah, Breaker. And she lists off some of her titles. Breaker of Chains, Queen of Meereen, and Mother of Dragons. My place is not here with you. And I'm like, that's a pretty good point.
It is a good point, but to the matron, she's like, you were the wife of a call.
Yeah.
You thought he would conquer the world. She's conquering the world herself, motherfucker.
She doesn't need a call to conquer the world for her. Yeah, the matron continues. She's like, I was also the wife of a great call Savo. I thought he would conquer the world with me at his side. And I'm like, that's because you're not a conqueror yourself. Dany is. She didn't need that conqueror doing it for her.
Yeah, and I also think while the matron may or may not know that Dany is a conqueror herself, I think she's trying to relate to Dany and say to her, like, right. I've been in your shoes. I know that feeling. You married this guy. You thought you had this major Khalasar. I mean, Khal Drogo was quite a loved and respected Khal.
Oh, yeah.
He's famous in the Dothraki world. And
he's like the Mance Rayder of Dothraki.
Yeah, he's like the big guy. And... but what she's saying is she's trying to relate to Dany. Like, we were all there. We've all thought that before. Like, we're like a sisterhood.
Yeah, totally.
In a way.
Exactly.
She goes, we were all young once, but we all understand the way things are. You will learn as well if you are fortunate enough to stay with us.
If
every Khaleesi becomes a Dosh Khaleen. She goes, yeah, right after your call dies, you went out into the world. That is not allowed.
Yeah. So now
she's
now
like,
the Khalasar.
all of the Khalasars have come back.
Oh, yeah, that's true. For some thing that they do.
Kalar Vezven?
Kalar Vezven, yeah. Not sure.
This is basically like a grand council. They're going to decide which cities that they're going to sack, which ones they're going to enslave people from. And now they have to decide what they're going to do with this silver-haired widow. If your place is here with us, Mother of Dragons, it's the best you can hope for.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. She calls her Mother of Dragons and simultaneously says, this is the best you can hope for. It's like, you're acknowledging the existence of dragons here. What do you think? Her dragons are just going to allow this? Like, just
to
let
continue.
her stay here? Yeah, that she's just going to stay here and wither away, and that Drogon isn't going to come and roast the whole fucking place.
And I'm sure they've heard the stories of her walking out of the fire too, because there were a handful of straggler Dothraki that were following Dany at that time, and I'm sure they've been now absorbed into other Khalasars or even killed off, perhaps.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm sure there are stories and rumors. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the Khalasar abandoned her before.
Yes, there were just
born.
Stragglers. There was just a handful.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, remember the matron is like, you thought that Khal Drogo would conquer the world with you at his side, and interestingly, she could say that, well, she could paint it as if Khal Drogo died and his essence transformed into the dragons, basically, you know what I mean? So in a way, Khal Drogo gave birth to the dragons by dying himself and being,
because only death can pay for life.
Yeah, exactly. So in a way, it is Khal Drogo that's like helping her to conquer the world right now. Through the existence of the dragons.
I love that. Yeah, so that was my number 2. Do you have anything else you want to add before we go on to your number 1?
Yeah, it's so great how she manages to escape this situation.
Yeah.
Doesn't even need her dragons.
Definitely.
So awesome. I think that's pretty much it. We can jump to my number 1. My number 1 is A Girl Is No One.
Ooh.
So, as usual, Arya's getting whooped on by the waif, just pummeled in the face with a...
It's hard to watch.
Yeah, just staff cracking her across the skull a million times.
Bleeding.
This is the waif's favorite pastime, is just beating the piss out of Arya. Yeah. Until Arya starts to get the better of her coming up, and you can tell she gets frustrated. So she's whooping on her and everything and asking who she is, and Arya's like, no one. And then she's like, who were you before? And so she starts telling about Arya Stark and about her family, and her father was Eddard Stark, and who her mother was, and about how she had a sister and 4 brothers, and whack, hits her for lying about having 4 brothers. And it's more of a lie than Arya even knows, because it's not that he's just a half brother. He's not a brother of hers at all, really.
That's true. They're cousins.
Yeah. So she corrects the lie, saying 3 brothers, Robb, Bran, Rickon, and a half brother, Jon. And so there's theories that Jaqen H'ghar is Rhaegar Targaryen.
Oh.
Which is an interesting theory and worth looking into.
Well, doesn't he have that streak of silver hair?
Yeah, that could be a clue. So Jaqen H'ghar, he's kind of switched places a couple times with the waif. So if Rhaegar is one of these faceless men, this one that's doing the interrogation here is not Rhaegar, probably, because when she said a half-brother, Jon, he probably would have smacked her again for lying there. I mean, she doesn't know she's lying, but if that was Rhaegar as a faceless man, he'd be like, no, a man is a girl's cousin.
Yeah.
So he might have smacked her again for lying there. Odds are that on the show, Jaqen H'ghar is not Rhaegar, but that would be cute. So she's asking where all of her family is now, and she's talking about how they could be dead, and the Hound becomes a topic, and Arya says she left him to die.
I like how she wafts the smells of the bowl. She's testing all the powders, and she's smelling the powder, and one of them smells really bad. And then she's wafting the smell of another one, and she goes to put it in one vial and then moves it to the next vial. And Jaqen H'ghar is watching her from the background.
She's making poisons or something?
I don't know what she's making, but she's functioning as a blind person.
Yeah. Definitely.
Figuring it out. And I think he's approving of that. He's watching her with a smirk on his face, she's figuring it out.
Yeah, definitely. There's more ways that she learns to thrive as a blind person in the books too, which you guys will really get a kick out of for sure.
Oh, cool.
I don't want to spoil them though. So she says that she left the Hound to die and that he was on her list. And then whack, again, gets smacked when lying about the Hound. And she divulges that he was not on her list anymore. She'd taken him off of the list by the time that she left him to die. And I think we really pinpointed the moment that it happened when we were reviewing that whole section. When he told her the story about his burns, and she then started feeling empathy for him and tried to help him with his wound.
And he was so PTSD'd out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the moment when the transformation occurred in her mind to where he was no longer irredeemable, basically.
Yeah.
So the waif is like, what? You didn't want the Hound dead any longer? She didn't want him dead? And Arya says, no, she did and she did not. And the waif replies, she sounds confused. And Arya says, yes, she was. And I just thought this part was interesting because Arya is referring, or no one is referring to Arya as like in using language of the past tense.
Yes.
She was confused. She did and she did not want him to die. And it's interesting because it's making Jaqen, it's like implying to Jaqen that she sees Arya as a past figure and it's not Arya anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good because it makes her seem like she's really transforming into no one. But at the same time, because she could just be referring to the way that Arya felt at those moments, like she was confused. She did and did not want the Hound to die. So it's not definitive. But then, as she is exceeding with these potions that she's making, she's going through more tests. She's divulging names on her list. And people have speculated that the waif may be a Frey. Remember that from our feedback? Right as Arya is listing names from her list, she says Walder Frey. The camera is like sort of zoomed in on the waif's face and has sort of an interesting reaction. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. Ammo for waif
speculation,
Frey
perhaps.
Yeah. And so the waif is like, that's a pretty short list because all it was 3 people, Cersei, Gregor, Clegane, and Walder Frey. And she's like, what? That can't be everyone you want to kill. And I thought for a second that maybe she was bummed out that she didn't make the list.
That's what I thought too. Like,
nice.
We're egging Arya on to say how she really feels about wanting to kill the waif.
Right. And also at the same time, the waif is kind of fucking up here because she's gone from past tense to present tense here. And she's like, that can't be everyone you want to kill. Whereas she should be saying that can't be everyone that Arya wanted to kill. So the waif is all fucked up with her
grammar.
Yeah. I'm like, is it currently Arya that you're talking to or is it nobody? Make up your fucking mind. You're supposed to be training her. And you're screwing up your tenses.
Maybe that's part of the training, though, is Arya is using the past tense because Arya is trying to become no one, but the waif still sees that there's Arya in her, so she's referring to her as Arya still.
Maybe. Very interesting. So the waif's like, are you sure you're not forgetting someone? And Arya's like, which name would you like a girl to speak? Which I thought was interesting. Yeah. She's like taking control and becoming more assertive, and the waif is starting to get frustrated, and
because she's starting to learn how to play the game.
Right. Yeah, she's learning, and the waif is not liking this improvement, and she's starting to get more agitated as they're physically fighting also, and Arya starts deflecting the blows even though she's blind.
Yeah, she's figuring out the waif's patterns.
Yeah, and the waif is getting all mad, and Jaqen is smiling. And then it cuts to Arya sitting beneath the sculpture of the werewood god, and Jaqen is tempting her again. It's like, it's almost too soon. Right after the temptations from last episode, Arya knows that if she wants to get what she wants, all she has to do is just say no, basically. So Jaqen is like, if a girl tells me her name, I will give her eyes back. Arya's like, a girl has no name. And Jaqen's like, come. Again, just like last episode, the same fucking thing. Like, she's picking up these patterns and she's able to like play the game now and manipulate them almost.
Yep.
To get what she wants. So she follows Jockin and brings her over to the well and the poison well, where she's been killing people from at the House of Black and White. And he fills a bowl of water and hands it to her. And Arya sort of hesitates. She knows what he's giving her. And this part is confusing to me because she kept Needle. We know she's not really no one. The face acted as poison for her, made her blind. Yet here, seemingly the only way that she'd be able to survive drinking this poison water from the pool here, is if she's really no one. Because she hesitates and Jockin says, if a girl is truly no one, she has nothing to fear. So that's implying like if you are really initiated, like if you're really one of us and you've abandoned the ego and like your former sense of identity, then you will survive this. And Arya drinks the water and closes her eyes and opens them, and her blindness is gone. Like her eyes are back to normal. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? Because her getting her sight back, that implies that she is no one at this point, but we kind of think she's not also. So what the fuck is going on? What do you think?
Do you think maybe there's some hidden magic going on that Jockin is doing behind the scenes because he knows she's not meant to be no one?
That's entirely possible.
But that she's completed the training that she needed while she was blind to get to kind of like her next step in her development from his perspective. So he might be playing, behind the scenes with some magic. Maybe.
It also made me think of Melisandre drinking the poison that Maester Crescent gave her in the season 2 premiere.
That's right.
And Melisandre, she wears a glamour, right? She's kind of like no one herself in a way.
Well, don't they worship the same god? I mean, isn't the red god the Lord of Light?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Jockin say the red god too. So maybe there's some kind of connection that if you're like if you're in with
well,
the
and
Lord of
Melisandre
Light,
wears red. She calls the god the Lord of Light, but she wears red.
She
and Jockin Hagar calls
also.
him that's right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So maybe like if you're in with the Lord of Light, you can drink poison and survive or something.
Maybe.
Maybe you don't have to really be fully no one. So she drinks it, gets her sight back. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, we know she doesn't end up as no one. She's like, I'm Arya Stark and I'm going back home. And Jockin's like, okay. Like in a few episodes or whatever.
Do it.
Yeah, it's just like, what the fuck? How is she able to do this and survive? Just interesting.
It's a good question for sure.
How can she pass this test when she's not really no one?
So when I was watching this scene, I thought of something. And so I have a question for you because I couldn't remember myself. Does Jon die the same episode that Arya goes blind?
Yes.
Because she gets her sight back. Technically the same episode that we finally see Jon like moving around as an alive person again.
Yeah, because it's both the season 5 finale when Jon is stabbed and when Arya goes blind, and that's the cliffhanger we get for her.
That's
for
right. Okay,
one.
that's what I thought. I mean, I know Jon technically opens his eyes last episode, but it's like the very last second of the episode. So This is really the first time that we see Jon like alive, and Arya also gets her sight back, and we know that she has a very special connection with Jon. We know that Jon gave her Needle.
We also, just because we're getting these pieces of the story at the same time as we're being told the story, though, doesn't mean that these events are happening anywhere near each other in the timeline.
Sure.
What I mean?
But I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really know like what I could read into with that, but it was just kind of a funny parallel that Arya goes blind when Jon dies, so she's kind of in the dark, and so is Jon, because he doesn't see anything. And then the same episode that Jon, we see Jon like truly breathing again, and Arya gets her sight back. It's the same episode. So I just thought
really
it was an interesting little parallel.
Yeah, very, very nice.
Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
whether or not they're related in terms of the events being related to one another, it's definitely a good way to structure the storytelling.
Well, and it could also allude to what we were just talking about, is some magic being performed by Jaqen, because if they both worship the same gods, Melisandre used magic to resurrect Jon. Jaqen could certainly use magic to give Arya her sight back.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Nice number one. It's a good scene.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a classic. What about you? What's your number one?
My number one was Jon's booty.
Oh yeah. Nice. So what do you got for notes?
The first note that I have is Sam getting seasick.
Oh yeah, the preview of all the Citadel barfing and stuff.
Yeah, I thought that too. It's like Sam has a weak stomach. He pukes a lot.
Yeah.
So Sam is just not feeling well, and Gilly's like, "Are you okay?" And Sam's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I love Gilly's line here. She goes, "Did I ever tell you I used to think the sea was called the sea because it was nothing but water as far as the eye could see?" And Sam's like, "I don't think so." Like, why would you tell me that?
See? They're spelled different, but they sound the same. Oh, Gilly is silly. Hilarious.
Yeah, and Sam is just not looking good at all.
Yeah.
And he's vomiting, and she gets some water for him, and he washes his mouth out, and Gilly's like trying to kind of comfort him here. She's like, "It's not going to be too long. We'll be in the South soon."
Yeah, and the captain says that Old Town is the most beautiful city in all of Westeros, which is kind of cool. But she looked legit excited when she was saying that. Like, I thought it was pretty good acting.
Yeah. And then so she's talking about it, but she's also looking over at Sam. She's like, "Are you going to throw up again?"
He looks distinctly sick at that moment, and I think it's because she mentions Old Town, and he thinks about his father, because he's like, well, we're not going to Old Town quite yet. We gotta.
Good call.
So I think that he's sick there. Like, he looks sick because he's thinking about seeing Randall Tarley.
He has to see his dad again with a wildling who we know he's not fond of.
So he sort of eases into informing Gilly of the change in plans. He's like, well, the Citadel doesn't admit women and children, and I don't have a Maester Aemon or Jon Snow to help me bend the rules there. So you're going to have to go stay with my mom and my sister and my evil dad.
But don't worry. My mom's cool.
Yeah, and she's all mad. She's like, well, you said, wherever you go, I go too, and everything. And she's getting all pissed off, and Silly is mad. Silly Gilly.
Silly Gilly, Gilly flower.
But she comes around pretty quickly when he's like, listen, like, I said that because I want to keep you safe, and this is to keep you safe. Like, becoming a maester, like, this is maybe the one thing that can help you be safe. He's going to play an important role with the information that he gets here.
And to your point about feeling sick about seeing his dad again, I know you had spoken about that Randall used to beat him with maester chains because Sam wanted to be a maester, or maybe that was someone from Raven's Calls.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
He at least kept Sam in chains, at certain points.
So he's getting physically sick here too, because he's going back to see Randall because he's on his way to become a maester.
Yeah, Randall's like, you make me sick. And he's like, so do you, father.
Man boobs.
Totally.
So yeah, we're actually gonna go to Hornhill. My father's, but my mom's super nice, and my sister is lovely. They'll take care of the both of you. Yeah,
and Gilly, has quite a change of heart after she learns that Sam really is trying to just look out for him, and she, takes note that he's really the only person who ever has looked out for him. She's like, well, if you think it's for the best, we trust you. And I was like, wow, she's taking this change of plans pretty well.
Yeah, because he does make the point, like, what are you going to do by yourself in Old Town? Like, you have no money and you have a baby, and I can't help you because I'm going to be basically in school and I'm not going to be making any money as a maester. So, like, basically this is the only way. And plus, he is right. I mean, Hornhill is so out of the fold at this point. Like, this is the first time we've really heard more about where Sam is from.
Yeah.
And it's relatively safe because Hornhill is not a part of this whole like War of the Five Kings and has not necessarily chosen any sides. So like the fighting is far away.
Yeah, it's pretty untouched.
It's pretty neutral. So it is a safe place for her to go.
Unless Randall finds out she's a wildling.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so she goes back over and, sits down with little Sam, and he goes, I said that because I want you and little Sam to be safe. That's all I want, to become a maester so I can help John when the time comes so you'll be safe. So we get kind of a glimpse into Sam's thought process here. He's like, I get to become a maester. I've wanted to become a maester. I get to help my best friend, and I get to keep my woman and her son alive.
And he thinks he can have a real effect. He's like serious about this. Like, I may be able to.
It's the one thing that he can contribute to the end of the world is his mind.
Yeah, he may be able to do something real positive.
Yeah, and to your point, she says, "Well, we trust you then." And he goes, "I just feel a lot better." If you threw something at me, because you should be kind of mad at that. She goes, I'd never do that to the father of my son. And I love that. And he looks over at little Sam, and Sam looks over at him and smiles back at him. And it's like, oh, Sam's a dad.
And I was wondering, is she pregnant also?
Oh, shit. Well, then he would have broken that. That is breaking the vows, because he's not supposed to father any children.
Yeah, technically that may be accurate. He's like, well, I'll just, let somebody else take care of it. No, I'm not fathering him.
Yeah, right. So that's all I have on that scene.
Nice. Yeah, same here. Good scene.
What's your next note?
My next note is fucking awkwardness between Tyrion and Missandei and Grey Worm. Yeah. Jeez.
Ooh,
Tyrion is just trying to get him to open up, talk just at all. He's like, to Missandei, he's like, you speak 19 languages. You must occasionally use some of them to talk about things. Which I thought was funny. Yeah. He's like, well, what would you guys be talking about if I wasn't here? And Grey Worm's like,
patrol.
What we do on patrol. Who we find on patrol, who we arrest on patrol, what I see doing patrol. Tyrion is like trying to be nice about it. He's like, that's good. That's very good. But that's a report. That's a duty report. I was thinking more about
like a conversation.
Talking about things. And I'm like, oh, this is fucking brilliant. And this next line that he has and the way that Missandei reacts and everything is just priceless.
It's so funny.
A wise man once said the true history of the world is the history of great conversation in elegant rooms. And Missandei's like, who said this? He's like, me, just now. Which is hilarious. Like any other person, they would be like laughing or like yeah. Oh, that was so cool.
And Missandei's like, awkward.
Just blank. And he's like, all right, no conversations. Strike one.
Are those crickets I hear?
Yeah. So he changes tactics. He's trying to play a game. And neither of them...
A drinking game.
Yeah. They don't drink. And he's like, okay, then no drinking. And that's strike two. And Grey Worm's like, games are for children. And Missandei's like, Master Krasny's would make us play games. Just the girls, though. And Tyrion's like, oh, God, no.
Oh, God, no. Innocent games. Those are not the games.
Yeah, fun games. So funny.
Tyrion.
He's just striking out with them after everything. And he's like, well, I have a great game. He's like, we can play without drinking. I make a statement about your past. And if I'm wrong, I drink. And if I'm right, and he's like thinking in his mind,
that doesn't work.
Drink. Maybe we can't play without drinking. And Right then, Varys enters, and he's like, "Oh God, finally!" Like the tough crowd. Oh, you took your time. Thank you for finally save me. It's so funny, and it turns out that Varys playing the Happy Maker has worked really well because he's learned some valuable information from the evil whore woman.
Yes.
About who funds the Sons of the Harpy, etc. Unfortunately, it's just Astapor and Yunkai and Volantis.
I think it's interesting that the Volantis got involved.
Makes sense because they're like a big slave city. They get a lot of their slaves from Astapor and Yunkai.
Oh, yeah, because they're the ones that do the tattoos. That's right.
Yeah. So they're like, naturally, they're trying to get the people who get them slaves to continue doing it. So they're funding that operation in part, interestingly. So he's like, great, we don't really have to worry about the local rebellion, just about the 3 rich foreign cities that are, running it, basically. Fuck, that
so
makes our problem more complicated. Grey Worm wants to attack. Even Missandei wants to attack. She's
like, we cannot let this happen.
Yeah, she's like, the masters only speak one language, and they've spoke it to me for many years. I know it better than my mother tongue. If we want them to hear us, we must speak it back to them. May it be the last thing they ever hear. Which I thought was super intense. We don't normally see Missandei getting this intense about stuff.
No, but she's pretty passionate about keeping the slaves free.
Yeah, totally. So really cool to see a little fire out of Missandei. And Tyrion's like, you may be right. We'll possibly fight them. And he decides to enlist Varys to send a message to the masters with his birds. So Cersei is trying to get information from her birds in Westeros. Tyrion is sending out birds all across Essos. It's pretty interesting. Varys was able to cultivate a new spy army pretty quickly, it seems. Although he already had a network operating over here, so he's just operating himself from a different place at this point, basically. So pretty interesting. He has a cool line, man can be fickle, but birds I always trust.
Yeah.
And I can tell you as a bird owner, don't trust birds.
I love Loki. I love that he hides in your sweatshirt.
Yeah, my dragon.
It's like, peekaboo!
Yep, totally.
Or that video that you took of him, and he's like in the shower curtain.
Oh,
and he like scurries out.
With his beak on the the surface.
He's funny.
Sliding along. Yeah, he's a goofball.
Loki, our mascot.
Yep.
The dragon.
Yeah, the dragon. So what do you got next for your notes?
The next on my notes is Tommen and the High Sparrow.
Yeah. And he's just entrancing Tommen.
Yeah, I mean, Tommen is so malleable. And we know from I know we've talked about this on previous episodes, that Tommen is, prone to religion. That he's brought up religion a few times. Yeah, a few times. So Tommen is trying so hard. I have a love-hate relationship with Tommen. Like, I want him to just like grow some balls and just step out there on his own, just do it and step into the role. But at the same time, he still looks like such a little boy. It's hard to take him seriously as a king.
Totally. He's just pouty little face and everything. His goofy little hand gestures.
Yeah, and so he comes in and he goes, hilarious. My mother would like to see her daughter's final resting place. The High Sparrow's like, oh, I'm sorry, Your Grace. That's not possible. Tommen is like, what? When?
Yeah, he's like, I am the king.
I am the king. And what does that remind you of?
Yeah, Tywin. Any man who has to say he is the king is no king at all.
No king at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the High Sparrow tells Tommen, she can come back in here when she's fully atoned for her sins. And Tommen starts freaking out at him. He's like, you cut all her hair off. You made her walk through the streets butt naked. What else is she supposed to do?
Yeah, what in the actual fuck, bruh?
And he goes, no, she has to now go to trial before 7 septons so we can learn the extent of the sins. And I thought to myself, well, what more? If she's already confessed her sins and done a walk of atonement, if they find more dirt out from her, then what's next? You know, I guess they're just like leading her kind of down this rabbit hole of she's just going to be put in the same situation kind of over again.
Totally.
So Tommen gets a little bit closer, and, you know, the High Sparrow says to him, you know, it means a great deal to me that the crown and the faith are the two pillars of the world. Do you know who told me that? Your mother.
Yo, mama.
And it's like, oh my God, Cersei, like, you gave him this ammo. You gave him this ammunition that he is equal to kings, essentially. They're two equal pillars. And he goes, my mother, the one who's unclean, who needs to, like, basically, you know, repent even more for her sins.
He's like, yeah, that one.
And, you know, the High Sparrow, he's like, okay, we just need to have a one-on-one here, son. Like, let's send our guards out of here. Which, again, Tommen is so naive to do that.
Yeah, so
Although
stupid.
there are some Kingsguard, like, in the distance behind him. There's certain camera angles. You do see some guards
so they didn't
standing.
fully leave.
They didn't fully leave, but they kind of backed off a little
so,
bit.
like,
still.
just putting himself to be in a position to be solely influenced by the High Sparrow here, without any, like, lawyer or, you know what I mean, like any opposing counsel.
Exactly. You know, so he basically kind of just goes into the religion and, you know, the mother and how it emanates through Cersei. You know, she speaks of you, and the mother's love outshines it all.
He goes into persuasion mode, like he's connecting with Tommen about Cersei, and then he's making himself relatable, saying that I'm a sinner too. Envy, you know, you had a mother and I never did. It's one more thing for me to atone for. And he's going through all these things that are tactics of persuasion, like coming across as if you're on the same level, like, oh, let me sit down here, sit with me. You're on the same level. But it's in reality, he's just taken control of the situation and he's telling you what to do, but it's disguised as like being an equal playing ground.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, so Tommen is very intrigued with what he's talking about, and I think is buying into it a little bit. Like, he knows that his mother has, you know, committed these sins, and I think he starts seeing a kind of connection between the High Sparrow and his grandfather, Tywin. Yeah. You know?
And that's like, he really respected Tywin.
Yeah, because he goes, a true leader avails himself to the wisest counsel he can. And that was like the first piece of advice that Tywin gave to Tommen.
Yep. And no one is wiser than the gods. Like, listen to me. And yeah, Tommen's like, my grandfather once said something similar.
And I think he's looking for...
Except for the part about the gods.
A relationship to kind of fill that role.
Exactly.
Tywin, so he's
hooked at that point.
He's open to this whole situation.
Oh, it's so messed up.
So it's so manipulative.
Oh.
So that's it for me with that note.
Tommen totally pwned here. He's just such a
ponage.
Ponage. Capital PWND.
Yeah.
So moving on from there, we go to Ramsay and the Karstark son and Small John Umber, whose father was the guy, the Great John, who questioned Robb's authority at the dinner table, and Grey Wind ripped off a couple of his fingers.
Yeah, yeah.
Love
the meat is bloody tough.
Yeah. Great character. So they are interviewing the Small John, basically trying to get them onto their side, because they know that they need those three houses basically to dominate the north. And the Lord Karstark is wary because the Umbers are famously loyal to the Starks. And the Small John turns it around on him like, so are you. You guys are, you know, you share a bloodline with the Starks, but, you know, times change. You're not supporting them anymore. Yeah, here we are. So Ramsay is trying to push the lie that his father was assassinated by their enemies, and Small John's not buying it.
He's like, you killed him.
No. Yeah, your father was a cunt. You killed him. Admit it. I might have done the same thing if he hadn't done me the favor if my father hadn't done me the favor of dying on his own, which was kind of funny. And Ramsay is like still pushing the line. My father was poisoned by our enemies. He's like, yeah, sure.
That's bullshit.
So he's like, why are you here? And they want to join up, but the Small John is not into kneeling or swearing any oaths or anything like that. He's worried that if Jon Snow comes south, that the wildlings / Night Watch might be able to take Winterfell if with a Stark basically leading them, because he knows the terrain better and all that. And he's like, I'm not going to kiss your fucking hand or get on my knees or any of that bullshit. But I do have a gift that'll convince you that we're on the same side here. And he's like, well, I hope it's a girl.
I like redheads.
I like redheads. And he's like, well, one of them is a girl. And it's revealed that it's
one of them's
Asha.
A redhead.
Yeah, it's Osha. And we're like, oh, fuck.
Natalia Tena.
Like, goddamn.
It's been so long since we've seen them.
Yeah, since season 4. And we're like, oh god, if that's Osha, then the other person underneath that
is a Rickon.
Yup. Bomi pulls off the hood and it's Rickon. We're like, fuck.
Yeah.
And Ramsay's like, oh well, how do I know that this is Lord Stark?
I love how he goes right up to his face and looks at him.
Yeah, he
inspects him and he's like, and how do I know this is Rickon?
Yeah, and he's like, well, there's this other thing, and Rickon and Osha look at each other like, oh, like both depressed by what's about to be revealed. And he comes out with Shaggy Dog's head on the hook.
And they look away. Oh, this is so sad.
Rickon can't look at it. He's like, oh, looks away.
Neither can Osha.
Yeah, they're both really upset about this. And, for good reason. I would be trying to bite out these motherfuckers' throats if they were parading my dead dog in front of me like this. I'd be like, hell no.
Yeah.
No fucking chance. So Ramsay, in creepy fashion, sees the dead direwolf's head, and he's like, "Oh, it is true. Welcome home, Lord Stark." Ha 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 ha.
Your days are numbered.
Yup. Make sure to zigzag.
Don't forget to zigzag.
Yup. And that's it. That's all I have for notes. How about you? Anything else you want to talk about?
I have one more thing.
Cool. What do you got?
This episode is called Oathbreaker, and I was curious which scene you thought best encompassed what this name of the this episode is.
Good question. Well, we have Jon potentially breaking his Night's Watch oath. We have Dany, who's intending on breaking her, I don't know if there's a vow involved other than her marriage vow to Khal Drogo, which would bind her to this tradition of the Vaes Dothrak. So she wants to break that whole oath. What else did you notice? Anything?
No, those were the two that I noted as well, and I just thought it was interesting that it was both Dany and Jon. True. That were the Oathbreakers in this. Well, quote unquote, technically speaking, Oathbreakers.
I wonder if there's anything with Ned and the people at the Tower of Joy, too. There's probably some oath-breaking thing going on there as well.
Oh, that was the other one I had starred. Sorry, I have one more page here. Is Howland Reed stabbing Sir Arthur Dayne in the back? I think it's kind of like taboo to stab people in the back.
Not necessarily an oath, but yeah, it's not like, it's frowned upon for sure.
Yeah.
Considered dirty and underhanded and not honorable. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was it for me. I forgot that I wanted to ask you to see if we picked on that it was Jon and Dany.
Sure. If any of you guys out there have other good ideas of ways that the word Oathkeeper plays into the material Oathbreaker plays into the material of this episode, let us know. I'd love to hear your interpretations.
Please do. We'd love that.
Definitely. All right, stick with us for a few seconds, guys. We'll be right back after this short break. This is a segment from my song about the battle at the Tower of Joy. And we're back with news about Game of Thrones. From popculture.com, 60-mile-per-hour winds destroy Game of Thrones' famous tree.
How sad.
Yeah, by Alison Shanter. A tree made famous by HBO's Game of Thrones has been destroyed by strong winds that swept through Northern Ireland over the weekend. According to The Independent, the Dark Hedges, a tunnel of beech trees, was uprooted by gale force winds of up to 60 miles per hour on Saturday, causing one of the trees to fall sometime in the night of Saturday, January 26th. Located on the Burgach Road near Armoy in Northern Ireland, the trees were planted more than 200 years ago at the entrance to the Stewart family's Grace Hill House mansion. I have ancestors of that house, the Stewart family.
Really? That's cool.
Yes, and the branches grew over the decades to create a twisting canopy over the road. Originally, there had been around 150 trees, but that number has since dwindled to about 90. The Dark Hedges was made famous after they appeared throughout the course of Game of Thrones Season 2 as the King's Road, which runs from King's Landing to the Wall in Westeros. The scenic location first appeared in Season 2, Episode 1, The North Remembers, as Arya Stark escaped from King's Landing and fled down the King's Road disguised as a boy with Yoren, Gendry, and Hot Pie. The location has also appeared in a number of other popular series and movies, including Transformers: The Last Night.
Nice. That's sad, though, that they're getting destroyed from storms.
Yeah, it sucks.
I know that scene with them walking Arya and Gendry and Yoren. I remember that road.
I'll have to go back and check it out because
It's really pretty. Next, we have from narcity.com. Florida's famous Renaissance Fair is hosting a Game of Thrones adventure weekend by Janalee Espinal. If you are a fan of the HBO show Game of Thrones, then you'll be a fan of this medieval epic festival. It's a place where you can dress and act like a queen or pretend you're in the Battle of the Bastards. Florida's Renaissance Fair will be hosting a Game of Thrones adventure-themed weekend, and it's going to be mystical. The festival will be hosted by Deerfield Beach with a special GOT adventure the first weekend on February 9th and 10th. This weekend will be all about intrigue, betrayal, power, mystery, royalty, and the adventure at the village of Kegsworthy.
Sounds like fun.
You can play... Yeah, seriously. It's like a Game of Thrones cosplay weekend.
Oh, so cool.
You can play your fantasies at this festival and see as many Jon Snows as you want during the weekend. And even if you miss this weekend, you can attend the next 6 weekends and catch the medieval-inspired activities. According to the show director, Richard Weber, the staff is being prepared for GOT storylines, and you'll be able to see a lot of Daenerys. Michigan Renaissance Festival already has a GOT-themed weekend, but this is the first one for Florida.
I'd like to see a lot of Daenerys, just saying.
Bow chicka bow wow. The next weekends will include themes such as pirates, Vikings, and Harry Potter. Game of Thrones weekend will be extra special and will include fight demonstrations with knights.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Next, moving on to...
Vacay.
Totally. Moving on to Game of Thrones and history from historycollection.co. 10 historical parallels to Game of Thrones. The first is the Red Wedding and horror in the Highlands. Martin revealed that 2 events inspired his Red Wedding. The first was the execution of the 16-year-old Earl William Douglas and his younger brother in 1440 at an event known as the Black Dinner. The powerful Earl had accepted an invitation from the 10-year-old King James II to dine at Edinburgh Castle. During the feast, however, Douglas heard the beating of a single drum, at which point a platter was brought to his table. When lifted, the platter revealed the head of a black boar, a symbol of death. Being alerted to his fate did nothing to save him, and the Earl and his brother were immediately dragged to the courtyard, given a short mock trial, and beheaded. The second, more prescient event took place at Glencoe in the Scottish Highlands, a place of tranquil natural beauty that masks a macabre history. What transpired was essentially a massacre. The murder of 38 MacDonald clan members at the hands of the Campbells, who for nearly 2 weeks had been their guests. As in Game of Thrones, the reality behind the conspiracy was more complicated. Just as it was actually Tywin Lannister who organized the Starks massacre, and the skin-stripping Boltons who helped carry it out, the order at Glencoe was given by the Scottish Secretary of State, John Dalrymple. Dalrymple had a personal vendetta against the Highland clans in general, as he saw them as obstructive towards a union with England, but he particularly hated Maclean and his MacDonalds of Glencoe. Maclean's failure to sign his oath of allegiance to William by the deadline of January 1st gave him the excuse he needed to destroy them. Robert Campbell's soldiers arrived at the MacDonald's fort at Glencoe on February 1st. They took shelter from the elements outside and retreated to all the hospitality they were entitled to under the Highland Hospitality Code. Then, on the night of February 13th, 1692, as a blizzard raged outside and everyone was sleeping, the Campbells set about murdering every MacDonald they could find. 38 lay dead inside the fort the next morning, including the clan leader, Alasdair MacDonald, known as Maclean. Around 40 others, mainly women and children, had fled the fort, including Maclean's wife, but ultimately died from exposure on the mountainside. The massacre at Glencoe sent shockwaves through Scotland. Even among the participants, there were those who tried to warn the victims, giving them and their families enough time to layer up and try to make an escape. And its effects are still being felt today. Despite the successes of various historical Campbells, the name still bears the weight of ancestral responsibility. Visit Glencoe's Clocaig Inn, and you'll see a sign on the door that reads, "No Campbells."
Oh, crazy.
Hardcore.
That's awesome. Next, we have the Night's Watch and the medieval holy orders. Medieval Europe saw its fair share of harsh winters. In 1258, temperatures plummeted to such an extent that an estimated 20,000 people starved to death in London alone, with people in such desperation that they gnawed bark from the trees. Oh, that's God. Horrible. It's like Stannis on the island boiling leather.
The siege of Storm's End.
Yeah. In 1357, starving wolves prowled through England's Sherwood Forest, hunting humans and livestock alike. But compared to those Westerosi who suffered a long night lasting generations, 8,000 years before the Targaryen conquest, the Europeans were summer children. The Night's Watch was established in the wake of the long winter. They were established as a military order charged with defending the realm of men against the horrors, or as they're called, others, beyond the wall. No such parallel existed in European history unless we look to the Roman legionaries posted on Hadrian's Wall. But if we look to the peripheries of medieval Europe, specifically the Holy Land at the time of the Crusades, we can see patterns into which the men of the Night's Watch fit.
Ooh.
One was the Knights Templar. I love the Knights Templar.
Yep.
Such cool stuff with them.
Got family that sheltered the Templars too when they were kicked out of France in the early 1300s.
That's badass.
In Scotland.
One was the Knights Templar, a military holy order whose job was to protect pilgrims passing through the Holy Land. Another was the Teutonic Order, initially charged with caring for the sick in the same vein as the Knights Hospitaller, but militarized at the end of the 12th century. Both Templars and Teutons took vows of celibacy, renouncing female contact of any sort, including kissing their mothers. And this embracement of chastity finds echoes in the vow of the Night's Watch. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory.
Oh, it's crazy.
Definitely. We don't know the wording of the vow sworn by the Knights of the Teutonic Order. It's safe to say, however, that rather than hearkening on about the night gathering and one's watch beginning, it's centered around defending the Holy Land from the infidel and helping take it back from Christianity. But we know there were many similarities, encouraging poverty, chastity, and obedience to God's will. There are also a number of similarities regarding the hierarchical structure of the fictional and historical orders. Just as men of the Night's Watch are answerable entirely to their elected Lord Commander, the Templars and Teutons were utterly obedient to their elected Grand Master. Both the historical and the fictional orders were also completely autonomous. They weren't answerable to individuals. Kings or countries or individuals outside their order, as they were seen as serving a higher purpose.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the learning about like the Knights Templar and those old secret societies and stuff like that.
So cool.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. I have ancestors in the House Sinclair in Scotland who sheltered the Templars after being eradicated and kicked out of France by, I can't remember what king it is, the king from that TV show Nightfall, King Philip.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, these Sinclairs may have been involved somehow in the money pit at Oak Island, to the interesting mystery of the treasure allegedly that exists up there in Oak Island in Canada, Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
I heard about that. Pretty crazy. Just interesting. You hear that?
What was that?
Ravens! Princess Sarah of House Von Daltrin. I love the way Alistair goes out. He's an underappreciated character, in my opinion. He did everything he was supposed to, kept it real, and tried to be reasonable for the most part. Just so happened that Jon Snow was the first dude in hundreds of years to be stark raving mad, but right. Yeah, nice. He thought he was doing the right thing for sure. He did what he thought he needed to do for his oath and to keep the people safe, and it just so happened that Jon was right and he wasn't in this case. But he went out believing he did the right thing for sure.
I think so too. Lady Alicia of House Stout writes, one could argue, is Jon leaving the Night's Watch an oath break? Yeah, I think it could be, looked at it that way. The oath of the Night's Watch does say that you are the watcher on the wall until your death. Technically, Jon died, therefore his watch is over and no oath is broken. Now, I guess you could look at it on a metaphorical sense, then yes, it could be an oath-breaking moment. Yeah, I kind of agree. It's kind of gray territory because most people don't come back from the dead.
Yeah, whether you're looking at it metaphorically or literally, or it depends on the context, like everything.
But good catch, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sir Matthew of House Repp. Once again, I have to commend the writers for picking a perfect title for this episode and all the nods to the broken oaths within it. Ooh, this sounds interesting.
Oh, nice.
The biggest one is Jon leaving the Night's Watch, claiming that his watch is over. We also have Dany knowingly or unknowingly breaking her oath to join the Dosh Khaleen upon Drogo's death. Ollie and Sir Alistair being hung for breaking their oaths to serve under the Lord Commander. Ah, of course. House Umber and Karstark have now broken their oaths to the Starks.
Oh, yes.
True. Yeah.
How did we not see that
one? I don't know. We're idiots, apparently.
Nice one.
Yeah, because they've been...
Sir Matthew.
Yeah, they've been loyal to House Stark for generations, centuries, thousands of years.
Centuries.
And the epic Tower of Joy fight takes place because Rhaegar broke his marriage oath to Princess Elia. Ooh, that's a good point, too.
Yes.
Really good point. Speaking of that Tower of Joy fight, I'm pretty sure one of those two swords that Arthur Dayne is using is Dawn, due to the sunburst on the hilt. But is Eddard using ice? It doesn't look big enough. Good catch, and no, Eddard is not using ice. That was more of a ceremonial blade used for beheadings and things like that.
Because it was so big.
Yeah, although with Valyrian steel, it would be relatively lighter than it would be with regular steel. But we've seen Ned Stark using other swords on other occasions as well. Like when they discover the direwolves in season 1, episode 1, they hear the sound, they go over there, and Ned has a much smaller sword on his waist, on his belt, like an arming sword or something like that, one-handed sword. So it is not uncommon for Ned to be wielding a blade other than ice, which is probably, kept safe most of the time and everything like that. Protected unless it's necessary to use it for something.
Yeah.
Sir Matthew goes on, the waif is insisting that there has to be more people on Arya's list than she has named. Is she insulted that she hasn't been added? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think so.
It's great. And he finishes off his feedback saying, poor shaggy dog. The big old sad face.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shaggy dog was cool
sad.
looking too. Big old like black wolf kind of. Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
So sad to know that another dire wolf is gone.
Yep, losing them one by one.
So just Nymeria and Ghost are left.
Summer is alive at this point as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Not for long,
this
though.
point. Yeah, I was just going to say at this point, that's true. Oh, I hate when the dogs die. Or the wolves die.
Definitely.
Lady Lucy of House Jane. Someone needs to be the prince who was promised. Does that mean that Melisandre hasn't seen Jon in the flames? She's just deciding?
I'd say that she's seen all these things in the flames and she's just trying to interpret them. Like she had sort of deduced that she thought Stannis was the prince that was promised beforehand, but now she's learning that she learned that was wrong, obviously. So she's trying to figure out.
It's like a puzzle, I think. I think she sees bits and pieces of certain scenes.
She knows
and
about
images.
the prophecy, so she knows that the figure is supposed to be out there. She's just trying to figure out what's what in the visions, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a big giant puzzle. I love the Jon and Tormund reunion. The closest Tormund can get to telling me that he cares.
You've got a small pecker. AKA, I love you.
Yes. I love both that Gilly finally gets that Sam is just trying to keep her safe, and also Sam's impeccable vomit timing. Yeah. Young Ned is so good, and I love the Tower of Joy scene. Me too.
Legendary.
He's amazing.
Legendary.
It's also nice to see a chink of imperfection in Ned's persona. It makes him more human, and Arthur Dayne is fucking amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed on all counts.
I miss petulant Bran. I wonder why he changes into such an emotionalist thing when the current Three-Eyed Raven isn't like that.
We discussed that in this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. You made that point too, that
maybe he's like
the Three-Eyed
overloaded.
Raven is not crazy.
Right, yeah.
I think it's an overload. And it kind of short-circuited his brain a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds right to me.
Does anyone else want to shout, "The power of Christ compels you" when they see him? Or is that just me?
When you see Bran? That's hilarious.
Because he's possessed.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I really like the scene with Varys and the sex worker. I like how he gets his answers and his way. He does threaten her, but gives her a way out.
Yep. Really, really
Grey
well
Worm's
played.
Very, very
Love
well
it.
played for sure. Grey Worm's conversation is fascinating. I'm surprised that Mace has the balls to walk out on Cersei. Yes, I agree to that, but I think he feels the power shift for sure.
Definitely.
I hate that the waif makes Arya say that Jon is her half-brother. As someone who technically only has half-siblings, the term half-brother, sister really, really offends me.
Interesting. I've never heard that perspective before.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
It tries to diminish the relationship, but by
By
having it.
Yeah, interesting.
Halving it.
Halving. Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I like that perspective. I'm an only child, so I look at my cousins like siblings. So I, feel that too. Just like you don't know what a true sibling feels like.
Right.
So my cousins, I saw them every weekend growing up. I lived with two of them too over the course of my college years.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you think that Arya really believes she is no one at this point?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think maybe she's as far along as she can be, but I don't think Arya ever becomes no one.
Yeah, it's
truly
so weird, but she drinks that poison and survives. So
yeah, I think it's magic. Fuck the Umbers.
Fuck 'em.
Right?
Yeah, fuck the Umbers, man. Normally I'd be like down with the Umbers, but not right now.
Yeah,
not these
seriously.
Umbers.
No, they're assholes. And as much as I hate the traitors, you have to admire that they put their lives on the line for what they thought was right. It wasn't, but they thought it was. I have to agree with that.
Definitely.
The last line of the episode, sublime. One of my favorite scenes in the whole series so far.
What was the last line? My watch has ended?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
My watch has ended.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love Jon Snow.
So good. Maria of Rushai, about Season 6, Episode 2. Hello, Sir Duncan and Lady Rachel. I'm a long-time listener, first-time writer. Hey, thanks for writing in. I'd like to thank you for all the great work you do to provide us with this awesome podcast. It's one of my favorite ones. I liked the theory about Jaqen H'ghar being Rhaegar Targaryen. I like crazy things like that. And to the point about the relationship between him and Arya, it's pointed out many times that she looks a lot like Lyanna. That's all for this time. Thanks. Keep up the great work. Hope to be able to write to you more in the future. Thanks so much for writing, Maria of Rushai. You're welcome to write anytime you'd like. Always good to hear from you.
Nice. Thanks for writing it, everybody. We love your feedback so much.
Yep. Always love to hear from you guys and love to get your voices out there too. All right. That's our show. Episode 95. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thanks for listening. We love you guys.
And a thanks to John Bailey, the epic voice guy from the Emmy-nominated Honest Trailers, for announcing our show.
Boobs.
Boobs. Boobs.
Boobs. That's about as low as I can go.
Our whole show is just going to be boobs from now on. If you'd like to donate or subscribe to support us, you can go to paypal.me/GOMPodcast or patreon.com/GOMPodcast. There are links to both at gameofmicrophones.com.
Doing some online shopping? Go to gameofmicrophones.com and click on our link to Amazon. As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases.
Any contribution you make helps, and you can help secure the continued existence of Game of Microphones. We'd like to thank our patrons, Sir Matthew of House Repp, Lady Lucy of House Roberts, Lady Candace of House Tews, Lord Jeff of House Allen, Lady Teri of House Theodore, Sirenicide, and Luke the Low Duke. We love you guys. Thank you so much for your patronage.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
And make sure to check out Sirenicide, the serialized horror drama podcast featuring me and Archmaester Stitches. Go to Sirenicide.com and download it wherever you get your podcasts.
We also want to give a huge thanks to Lady Lisa of House Sky, Pie Romancer. She has been key behind the scenes working to get Game of Microphones up and running. It was also so fun having her on. I love her.
Yeah,
I love you, Lady
great.
Lisa. She's so cool. She's also a world-class artist, like seriously amazing. I don't even know. I'm blown away by all of her work. I loved the one that she did of George R.R. Martin and Rhaegar
really
Targaryen.
The Robin Williams one is amazing too.
I think that's my favorite so far. Yeah. You can check out her amazingly illustrated children's book, The People You May See, available now on Amazon.com. You can also check her work out at fineartsbylisa.com and on Instagram and Facebook at /fineartsbylisa.
Next episode, we'll be covering Season 6, Episode 4, Book of the Stranger. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air. If you'd like to call, you can call us at 813-JOFFREY. That's 813-563-3739.
I have to admit, when I first listened to this podcast and that was the phone number, I loved it.
Yeah, totally.
That was such a surprise at the end. I was like, oh my God, I want that phone number. If you would like to write in, you can email us at ravens@gameofmicrophones.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOMPodcast. And while you're there, give us a like and review.
Imp Slap. You can also listen to Game of Microphones on YouTube, BitChute, and Steemit. Just search for Game of Microphones to find our channel. Likes, comments, and shares are also greatly appreciated.
We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, and Minds at GoMPodcast.
And we're on Tumblr too at Game of Microphones.
All right, that's our show.
Thanks for listening.
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And now it begins.
No. Now it ends. On this episode of our series Rewatch, we're covering Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 3, Oathbreaker. I almost said Oathkeeper.
I know. Every time I go to say Oathkeeper, even when I'm typing it, and I'm like, fuck.
Do you want me to redo that?
Unless you think that's funny and you want to keep it. It's up to you.
We totally can. That's fine.
All right.
I don't care. So, Pycelle farts.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, I love that. It's like perception is reality.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense from your perspective. But he's offering her like a real serious solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely works this time.
Yeah.
I will say he is looking quite fit.
Yeah. Like, doesn't her kid have a breathing problem or something?
Yeah. We'll cut your fucking head off, basically.
Yeah, essentially. No, now it ends.
That was an awesome impression. So as far as we know, Arthur Dayne is buried under that cairn, but we haven't seen his body, type thing.
Yeah, he's like Tupac.
Yeah. One at a time, the guys will attack the person, and they'll they'll beat off the assailant. What do you want me to do? Whack a guy, off a guy, whack off a guy? Because I'm married. Don't beat off your assailants, people. Fend off so typically they'll fend off one attacker at a time. But here, he doesn't fight in the tournament.
I'm not going to fight in the tourney because I don't want people to see
what I can do. Maybe that's really saying, like, because I can't really do as much as the
really
legends say. Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Sasquatch, we know your legend's real. Sasquatch, you and Tenacious D are real. And all the viewers, all the book readers especially, are like, no, we need to see what's in the tower. We can't wait. This is ridiculous. So Bran is just not having it. We know he loves to stay inside these visions, whether he's warging into summer or whether he's touching the roots. Yeah, he's chasing the dragon constantly. And so there's a big ass dragon up in or baby dragon in that tower at this point. Oh man, that was a nice metaphor that worked out perfectly. So
everything. Okay, this is my number one. It had to be my number one.
Yeah, right.
Like, we see his butt. Come
yes.
on. Is he a White Walker?
Yeah.
Or is he Jon Snow?
Right. Like, is this a good resurrection or an evil resurrection? Is this the Bible or is this Resident Evil? Which direction is this story taking?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Melisandre birth a demon, so what is this thing arising here?
Hilarious. Shorty had them apple bottom jeans.
With the fur.
With the fur.
He's like, oh my god, like...
Nothing. There was nothing at all.
So fucking ominous.
Oh. So fucking ominous.
They stabbed.
They stabbed me.
They stabbed me. They look pretty raw still, but they could just be really bad fresh scars too.
Dany loves that shit.
Yeah, she's like, ooh.
She's like, I can feel your heart. You know?
Literally.
5 or 6 full stab wounds to the chest, and he's still going strong. That's the type of man Dany needs in her life.
She likes the bad boys.
She likes the bad boys.
I'm not a god.
What kind of god would have a pecker that small?
And I love that John laughs at that. He kind of smiles and...
Stannis likes you and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
If I had to do it all over, knowing where I'd end up, I'd pray I'd make the right choice again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's all about the Benjen Starks, baby.
What did you call him? A bag full of assholes? Crushed up assholes?
A bag full of mashed up assholes.
The second they showed his face, I was like, oh, there's the bag of crushed up assholes. You have Castle Black.
No need to be afraid. This is Sir Gregor. He's friends with all my friends.
Jamie's like, ooh.
Gets all freaked out. Hilarious.
Sorry.
You know, every time he's like, I demand a trial by combat.
Yeah.
So she's doing that. Anybody talking shit about the naked queen who walked the streets covered in poo.
Covered in
poo.
Boobs.
Oh, poop boobs. Ew.
I don't want to see these boobs.
I don't see these boobs. These boobs are too wrapped up in character development.
You know, you are nothing queen of your millionth name or whatever. Like, why would you tell me that?
See? They're spelled different, but they sound the same. Yeah. Randall's like, you make me sick. And he's like, so do you, Father.
Man boobs.
My next note is fucking awkwardness between Tyrion and Missandei and Grey Worm. Yeah. Jeez.
Ooh, it's tense.
Grey Wind ripped off a couple of his fingers.
Yeah.
Love
the
that
meat
part.
is bloody tough.
Yeah. You've got a small pecker, aka I love you.
Yes. Boobs.
Boobs. Boobs.
Boobs. That's about as low as I can go.
Our whole show is just gonna be boobs from now on.
Oh God.
If you'd like to boobs, donate to boobs at boobs.com.